Chapter 28-22. There were only 3 people at the banquet, so Lin Sun removed all the other tables. He, Feng Qixi, and Drifting Yunfeng sat around a table, drinking and chatting. It was night time, the moon was dim, and the mountain mist was hazy. The atmosphere was harmonious and contented. Feng Qixi was ranked second in the discussion of the 9 peaks 1,000 years ago. She even had several opportunities to step onto the path of immortality in the past 1,000 years, but she resisted them all, because her ambition was higher. Drifting Yunfeng was extremely famous in the 9 peaks because he was ruthless enough. He fought without any regard for his life like a madman, and he regarded life and death as nothing. He was a famous and peerless villain among the descendants of the Yuan sect. However, after they entered the Sky Pavilion, they were in a rather difficult situation. They were ignored and excluded by many people. Although it didn't affect their cultivation, they were still unhappy. The reason was simple. One of them admitted defeat and the other gave up in the Heavenly Evolution Dojo, so they were targeted by some great figures. In other words, they were implicated by Lin Sun. At this moment, when Feng Qixi proposed to form an alliance with Drifting Yunfeng, the latter hesitated for a moment before nodding and agreeing. Lin Sun naturally wouldn't object. He had just arrived here, so it was naturally a good thing to have Feng Qixi and Drifting Yunfeng as allies. By the way, have you heard of senior brother Gu Yujian? Lin Sun asked. Drifting Yunfeng's eyes narrowed slightly and he nodded. I know. A long time ago, he was the leader of the core descendants of the 3rd peak. He was extremely valued by the great figures of the sect. But 8,000 years ago, senior brother Gu Yujian mysteriously disappeared when he went out to carry out a task for the sect, and there's no news of him until now. This matter caused a shock in the sect at that time, and everyone suspected that senior brother Gu Yujian had suffered an accident. However, the great figures of the sect investigated for a long time, but they still couldn't find the reason. In the end, the matter was left unsettled. 8,000 years ago. Lin Sun narrowed his eyes slightly. Why do you ask about this? Drifting Yunfeng asked. Nothing. I've heard some things about him, and it's very strange. Lin Sun said, Senior brother Lu, you're also from the 3rd peak. Did Nan Bo Hong, the peak master, ask you to swear allegiance to him? Drifting Yunfeng's expression changed slightly, and he said, Junior brother, who did you hear this from? Lin Sun said, It doesn't matter who said it. What matters is whether such a thing is true. Lu Yunfeng glanced at the surroundings and transmitted a message. It's naturally true. Among the core disciples of the 3rd peak, as long as Nan Bo Hong thinks highly of them, almost all of them have experienced something like this. However, Nan Bo Hong did not force anyone to agree. He paused for a moment before he continued. These are all secrets of the 3rd peak. Everyone that Nan Bo Hong has questioned before has guaranteed that they wouldn't leak this matter, and I'm no exception. But I never imagined that junior brother would actually know about this as well. He was astonished. After thinking for a long time, Lin finally refrained from telling the truth about Gu Yujian's misfortune. What are you two whispering about? Feng Qixi couldn't help but ask when she saw the 2 of them conversing via voice transmission. Lin Sun smiled and told him the content of the previous conversation without concealing anything. As a peak master, this old thing formed a clique for personal gain. Does he intend to occupy the territory of Yuan's sect and become the king? Feng Qixi snorted coldly, and her eyes were full of hatred. Speaking of which, Yun Tianming, the 2nd peak master, is almost the same. He only values those descendants from the 8th heaven. As long as there are any benefits, he will give priority to those descendants he values. I don't know how many true disciples are dissatisfied with him. Lin Sun smiled and said, Sooner or later they will be unlucky. Whether it was Yun Tianming or Nan Bo Hong, they were all from his enemy forces. Naturally, he would not let them go in the future. I didn't expect that after getting out of the muddy pond of the 2nd peak, I thought there wouldn't be so many problems after entering the Sky Pavilion. But now it seems that my thinking was too simple. Feng Qixi sighed softly. Do you know why the other descendants of the Sky Pavilion didn't come tonight? Drifting Yunfeng asked. Lin Sun and Feng Qixi couldn't help but look at him. Drifting Yunfeng didn't keep them guessing anymore and said directly, because this is Qi Lingzhen's order. Sure enough, it's him. Feng Qixi's beautiful eyes narrowed. Qi Lingzhen, the head of the descendants of the Sky Pavilion. About 300 years ago, he had already reached the heavenly longevity realm. He was extremely dazzling. Originally, with his cultivation, he was already qualified to become a deputy deacon. However, according to the rules of the Yuan sect, after reaching the heavenly longevity realm, there was still a test. Only by defeating one of the 24 deputy deacons could one replace their position and smoothly become a deputy deacon. However, how could a deputy deacon be compared to an ordinary person? Don't look down on them just because they were deputy deacons. Some of them had already reached the peak of the heavenly longevity realm, and there was no lack of terrifying characters. In the 300 years since he became a heavenly longevity realm immortal, Qi Lingzhen had challenged them many times, but all of them ended in failure. Even now, although Qi Lingzhen was a heavenly longevity realm immortal, he was still a disciple of the Sky Pavilion. In fact, in the 3 pavilions, there were many characters like Qi Lingzhen. Just among the 30 or so disciples of the Sky Pavilion, there were 5 heavenly longevity realm immortals. From this, it could be seen how difficult it was to become a deputy deacon from the status of a disciple. Lin Sun also knew about Qi Lingzhen, but he didn't expect this person's influence to be so great. Just because of his order, the other descendants of the Sky Pavilion didn't dare to participate in tonight's banquet. Without a doubt, this was aimed at Lin Sun. Around Qi Lingzhen, there are 3 heavenly longevity realm immortals, Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaosheng. He can be called a giant among the disciples, and his power is also the most important. Once he gives an order, who dares to disobey? Lu Yunfeng said coldly, I'm sure that they will definitely make other moves in the future, and the 3 of us will be the targets of their suppression. Speaking of this, Lu Yunfeng looked at Lin Sun and said, Junior brother, the Sky Pavilion is different from other places. Here, even if someone deliberately uses the rules to suppress you, those big shots most of the time will just stand by and ignore it. Is this what you mean by no law can prohibit it? Lin Sun said. Lu Yunfeng nodded. Exactly. Lin Sun's eyes were deep and he said, If so, I'd like to see what tricks they will play next. The banquet didn't end until late at night, and Lu Yunfeng and Feng Qixi left one after another. After a long talk, Lin Sun increasingly realized that if he wanted to seek promotion in the Sky Pavilion, there was not much hope if he didn't break through as soon as possible. I'll go to the Book Mountain tomorrow. Lin Sun made a decision. The 3 9-star merits he obtained were the qualifications to become a disciple of the Sky Pavilion, and they hadn't been consumed yet. In other words, he could now go to the Book Mountain to exchange for a chance to read the Immortal Inheritance with these 3 9-star merits. But Lin Sun didn't know that the news that he invited the descendants of the Sky Pavilion to a banquet had already spread that night. Only Feng Qixi and Lu Yunfeng attended the banquet, and the others refused to attend. This is undoubtedly a show of strength to Lin Sun. Many people realized that even if Lin Sun entered the Sky Pavilion from the 9th peak, his situation still hadn't changed. He was still being resisted and excluded. Some people gloated, some felt pity, and some were waiting to see Lin Sun's show. The next morning, Book Mountain, Yuanshu Pavilion. Lin Sun's figure appeared at the foot of the mountain. After taking out the sect token, he smoothly passed through the restrictive power of the mountain and came to the top of the Book Mountain. There was an ancient palace that seemed to be made of divine gold here. It was bathed in the sunlight and looked magnificent. In front of the palace, there was only a man lying in a rocking chair. He was dressed in cyan clothes and had white hair. His eyes were closed as if he was sleeping soundly. Disciple Lin Sun greets the elder. Lin Sun stepped forward and saluted. He recognized the elder. His name was Jiang Yi. When he went to the Palace of Divine Treasure for the first time to receive his monthly salary, Chao Zonglin had made things difficult for him. Later, it was Elder Jiang Yi who dealt with Chao Zonglin. It was said that Jiang Yi had been guarding the Book Mountain all these years. He himself was a legendary elder of the Yuanshu Pavilion, and his cultivation was unfathomable. At the same time, Jiang Yi was regarded as the right-hand man of De Guyong, the deputy head of the Yuanshu Pavilion. In the rocking chair, Jiang Yi slowly opened his eyes and said, "Are you here to borrow the immortal inheritance?" Lin Sun nodded. This matter couldn't be concealed at all. Nowadays, everyone in the Yuan Church knew that he had completed 3 9-star tasks. I expected such a day would come, but I didn't expect it to come so soon. Jiang Yi got up from the rocking chair and said with emotion, "Speaking of which, I haven't seen anyone borrow the immortal inheritance for a long time. Come with me." As he said, he turned around and walked to the ancient hall. Lin Sun followed him closely. The hall was extremely vast. Row after row of bookshelves were arranged densely together, and there were actually over 1,000 of them. Every single bookshelf was filled with jade slips, scrolls, silk, beast skins, bamboo slips, and various other items. When Lin Sun saw such a scene, he couldn't help feeling dazzled. This is the first hall of the Mountain of Books. A total of 1,164,327 types of books are displayed here, and it includes the various techniques on the path of cultivation. Besides these, there are also secret manuals and inheritances for equipment refinement, pill refinement, taming, botany, and so on and so forth. As Jiang Yi spoke, he led Lin Sun towards the depths of the hall. When they arrived at the end, a tightly closed bronze door appeared. After pushing the door open, they saw another place where scriptures were stored. This is the second hall. There are more than 590,000 kinds of ancient books. Compared to the first hall, the books stored here are naturally much more precious. As he spoke, Jiang Yi continued moving forward. Just like this, Jiang Yi introduced the scriptures all the way. Unconsciously, they had passed through numerous halls. On the other hand, Lin Sun couldn't help but feel shocked in his heart. All along the way, all he saw were dense and vast ancient books, and the scene was truly too spectacular. Inheritance was the foundation of an orthodoxy. The number of scriptures stored in the Book Mountain showed how terrifying the resources and foundation of the Yuan Church were. Right at this moment, Jiang Yi stopped before the bronze door at the end of the hall and said, "Behind this door is the 9th hall. The immortal inheritance you want to borrow is hidden in there." Lin Sun suddenly raised his head. "P.S. Send it to me." Chapter 28-23. The bronze door was tightly shut, and it was inscribed with mysterious patterns of clouds. The fluctuation of the power of order was faintly enshrouding the surface of the door. The immortal inheritance hidden in the 9th palace is called the Book of Eras, and it was left behind by the patriarch of our sect a long time ago. Jiang Yi spoke softly from the side. The Book of Eras. Lin Sun's eyes lit up, and he was slightly excited in his heart. "I presume you're aware that it's almost impossible for the inheritance of the immortal path to be passed down because it involves a different path. Even if you leave behind your own comprehensions in a book, other cultivators won't be able to comprehend any profundities from it." Jiang Yi said, "But the Book of Eras is different. It carries the deduction and changes of the immortal path to the immortal path. Anyone who reads it will have different feelings and comprehensions. In the past countless years, many people in our sect have come to read the Book of Eras, but the profundities they obtained from their comprehension vary from person to person. Some have comprehended some of the profundities of the immortal path and had an epiphany. Some have comprehended it for a long time, but still gained nothing. In the end, the Book of Eras is not so much an immortal inheritance as a description of the immortal path to the immortal path. It's the general outline of the immortal path, and there's no specific method for reference. Lin Sun gradually came to an understanding when he heard this. He suddenly thought of the inheritance of the infinite divine book. When the 9 divine talismans merged into one, it transformed into the infinite divine talisman. Moreover, the profundities of spiritual tattoos could also be deduced and transformed from the infinite divine talisman. This seemed to be similar to the Book of Eras. Could it be that the infinite divine talisman is an immortal inheritance as well? Lin Sun's heart surged. Jiang Yi didn't know what Lin Sun was thinking, and he said, "If you're ready, I'll open the bronze door for you. As for what you can comprehend from it, it's up to you." Lin Sun took a deep breath and said, "Thank you, Senior." Jiang Yi didn't say anything else. He took out an ancient talisman and waved it lightly. Instantly, the power of order surged and roiled on the closed bronze door, and it transformed into a mysterious vortex passageway. "Take this talisman. No one will disturb you when you comprehend it. Just crush it when you want to come out." Jiang Yi handed a talisman to Lin Sun. "Thank you, Senior." Lin Sun cupped his hands and walked straight into the vortex door. Buzz. As his figure disappeared, the whirlpool passageway on the bronze door also tumbled and disappeared. Jiang Yi stood there silently for a moment before he turned around and left. Yuanshu Mountain, Shaoxian House. This was the place where Du Guyong, the deputy pavilion master, cultivated. That kid just entered the Sky Pavilion yesterday, yet he came to read the Book of the Eras today. In this way, it would seem like he's noticed that the situation he's in is bad. Du Guyong fell into deep thought after listening to Jiang Ye's report. Those fellows are going too far. They're trying to kill Lin Sun before he reaches Sempiternal Realm. If Lin Sun wants to avoid any future dangers, the most important matter at hand is to raise his cultivation. Jiang Yi said calmly. The master of the corps placed all his efforts on this kid, and he felt that Chen Shi would step foot onto a path that was different from the world and the ages. It was exactly because of this that his enemies feared him, and they were naturally unable to allow this kid to smoothly step foot into the eternal Grand Tao. Du Guyong's eyes were deep. However, if this kid is able to step foot into the eternal Grand Tao, it's a good thing for all of us. In the past countless years, the shaman sect has emerged in large numbers, and its momentum has grown stronger and stronger. It's faintly showing signs of surpassing our origin sect. The Zen sect has painstakingly built up its strength and built up its strength. Although it hasn't appeared for a long time, its foundation is even more unfathomable than the shaman sect. The spirit sect teaches everyone without discrimination. Although there are many chronic diseases and tumors lurking in their sect, their situation is still better than our origin sect. At this point, Du Guyong sighed softly and said, "In the end, our origin sect is in the worst situation amongst the 4 ancestral halls." Jiang Yi listened silently and couldn't help but ask, "In your opinion, why is our origin sect in such a situation?" "It's complicated." Du Guyong pondered for a moment and said, "Simply speaking, there are only 2 reasons. First, for countless years, the forces of the 8th Heaven's giants have penetrated the origin sect. Now they have grasped a lot of power in the origin sect. If this continues, sooner or later, the ancestral court of the origin sect will become the backyard of the giants of the 8th Heaven." Jiang Ye's eyes narrowed. "Occupying the nest of the magpie?" Du Guyong said, "You can say that." Jiang Yi couldn't help but sigh. At present, in the origin sect, except for the 9th peak, the other peaks have the clansmen of the 8th Heaven's undying giants. Some are true disciples, some are core disciples, some are elders, and some are peak masters. These forces are united with each other and have controlled most of the 9 peaks. For example, the 2nd peak master Yun Tianming and the third peak Master Nan Bohong are from the four major clans of the Dongwon clan, and the clans behind them have always followed the Dongwon clan. For example, the fourth peak Master Mu Yunjing is from the Mu clan of the eighth heaven. Similarly, in the land of the three pavilions, this situation also exists. It can be said that the tentacles of the eighth heaven's undying giants have penetrated the origin sect. If this situation continues, it is very likely that there will be a situation of occupying the nest of the magpie. After a pause, Duguyong continued. As for the second reason, it is related to some things in the ninth heaven. The situation of the sect is obvious to everyone, but it is difficult to change it. The reason is that a long time ago, after the sect leader left, there has been no news from him, and the Yuanqing Pavilion Master Yu Beihai is at a critical moment of achieving eternal Dao. The Yuankong Pavilion Master has encountered Dao retribution, and only a wisp of his primordial spirit is left. As for our Yuanshu Pavilion Master, after all these years, even I don't know what he is thinking. Speaking of this, Duguyong couldn't help but frown. In all these years, if the Origin Void Pavilion Master had been in control of the situation, there would not have been so many things happening within the sect. However, the Pavilion Master had always been in seclusion within his own cave. In all these years, he had not paid any attention to the matters of the outside world. Not to mention others, even a deputy pavilion master like Duguyong hasn't seen this pavilion master for a long time. My lord, what does this have to do with the ninth heaven? Jiang Yi asked. Duguyong said slowly. If the immortal giants of the eighth heaven didn't get the support of the ninth heaven, I'm afraid they wouldn't dare to encroach on the Yuan sect in this way. The sect leader hasn't been heard from for many years. It's very likely that something happened to him in the ninth heaven. Jiang Yi vaguely understood. Things are indeed a bit complicated and tricky. No matter what, the appearance of Lin Sun, the descendant of the Fangtsuan Mountain, is a good opportunity, because the enemies of the Fangtsuan Mountain happen to be some chronic diseases and tumors in our sect. This child is entrusted with all the painstaking efforts of the master of the Fangtsuan Mountain. His future achievements are destined to be limitless. Duguyong's eyes were deep. I'm looking forward to him becoming stronger and stronger. In this way, he may be able to solve some of the hidden dangers in the sect. Jiang Yi was shocked. So that's how it is. Go and look after the Book Mountain, don't let anyone disturb this child's cultivation. Duguyong said. In addition, when this child decides to break through the Tao, remember to tell me as soon as possible. At that time, I don't mind acting as his protector. Jiang Yi took the order and left. On this day, everyone in the Yuan sect heard that Lin Sun had entered the Book Mountain to read the Immortal Inheritance. For a moment, it attracted a lot of attention. Even those who didn't know the situation knew that Lin Sun was preparing to break through to the immortal path. As for those who knew the inside story, they had different thoughts. Those who hated Lin Sun naturally couldn't tolerate Lin Sun breaking through to the immortal path. For a moment, undercurrents were surging. Book Mountain, the ninth palace. In the center of the empty palace, there was only a lonely scroll floating in the air. It was suffused with a mysterious immortal aura. Lin Sun walked forward and stared at the scroll, but he didn't see anything profound. But when his divine sense probed into it, countless wonderful and indescribable visions surged into his mind like landslides and tsunamis. For a moment, all his consciousness disappeared. In a trance, a muffled sound of thunder resounded in the darkness. Then, the darkness was broken, and the chaos was separated at this moment. An earth-shattering aura appeared, and everything displayed a primordial and desolate scene. Gradually, clear chi rose and transformed into the sky, while muddy chi sank and condensed into the ground. The quintessence energy of the chaos transformed into a myriad of grand daos that filled the heavens and the earth, and then they condensed into the sun, moon, stars, mountains, rivers, and all things in the world. In next to no time, all sorts of living beings started to appear and multiply. The plants and rocks bathed in the aura of the Grand Tao gradually started to gain intelligence and give birth to spirits and spirit. Countless lives were born in the mountains and lakes, and then birds and beasts started to appear on the ground. That was the earliest period of time. The world had just been split open, and everything was born. Later on, various races and civilizations appeared. Along with the passage of time, different civilizations collided and fused ceaselessly, causing the world to evolve and transform ceaselessly. The affairs of the world rose and fell, and time flowed. Countless cultivation civilizations emerged like waves before dissipating. Numerous extraordinary figures trudged on the Grand Tao, and they walked through the passage of time in search of the true essence of immortality and eternity. Finally, someone proved the immortal Tao. The immortal Tao had appeared. No matter how time passed, it would remain immortal and indestructible. It was the golden era when the cultivation civilization had evolved to the extreme. It was resplendent and dazzling, and it was like a key that could transcend the cycle of the world had finally been found in the accumulation and precipitation of the ages. When his consciousness sensed the aura that belonged to the immortal Tao, Lin Sun, who was in a trance, couldn't help but feel a kind of speechless excitement and joy. The immortal Tao was exactly the power he'd been diligently seeking. However, it wasn't long before a terrifying sound of thunder resounded in the river of time, and the excitement and joy in Lin Sun's heart were instantly replaced by icy coldness and horror. Chapter 28-24. The sound of thunder resounded, and it seemed like the horn of the end of the world. The world began to collapse, the world began to crack, and all things began to wither. An unprecedented disaster appeared in the cultivation civilization. Cultivators' cultivation began to decline, their bodies began to decay, their souls began to dim, their state of mind began to fall, and their willpower began to collapse. No matter how amazing their cultivation was, even if they were giants on the path of immortality, they could not survive such a disaster. Later, the world fell, the sky collapsed, and all things perished. Everything returned to chaos and fell into eternal darkness. Seeing this, Lin Sun broke out in a cold sweat, and his heart was replaced by indescribable horror. After a long time, he gradually calmed down. What he had seen before was actually a real change of an era. From the birth of an era to the destruction of an era, the ups and downs of time, endless changes took place. Until the moment of extinction, everything returned to the beginning of eternal darkness. There were too many mysteries, such as the birth of all things in the world, the changes of the world, the rise and fall of civilization, and the constant evolution of the path of cultivation. All of them contain the mysteries of the Great Way, especially the appearance of the eternal path towards the Tao. It was like a key that had finally been found after being searched for through the ages, and it led the world to an extremely dazzling golden era. But all of this disappeared in the end. It disappeared in the catastrophe that was like the end of the world. Lin Sun still had a lingering fear when he thought of the scenes of destruction he had seen before. "Is it the 5 signs of decay?" Lin Sun murmured in his heart. He thought of Dishi, Wei Mingzi, Wu Shuang, and Master Lu. They had all experienced the change of the era and survived the 5 signs of decay until this era. After a long time, Lin Sun raised his eyes and looked at the Book of Eras floating in the void again. Only then did he realize that the immortal inheritance regarded as the most important inheritance of the Yuan sect was so different. Lin Sun began to meditate with his legs crossed. In his mind, he recalled what he had seen and felt before, and began to ponder the mysteries and mysteries contained in it. Gradually, he forgot himself. Time flew. 10 days later, Lin Sun opened his eyes quietly. He stood up and once again explored the Book of Eras with his divine awareness. It was still the same darkness. The chaos began to appear, the clear and turbid air began to divide, and all things began to be born. The birth of an era was like a gorgeous and magnificent picture, and also like a moving epic, playing in Lin Sun's heart one by one. However, unlike the first time, He started to meditate and sense the profundities of the changes in the era, and he started to comprehend the various changes that occurred before the eternal path towards the Tao appeared. His mind was immersed within it, and it was like he was experiencing the changes in the world through the river of time, and he was completely unaware of the passage of time. In the end, the terrifying rumbling of thunder resounded once more, and the calamity that seemed like the end of the world descended once more, causing the entire era to fall into destruction. But this time, Lin Sun was prepared. He used all his strength to feel and comprehend. Because he knew that even if the 5 signs Tao tribulation could annihilate an era, there were living beings that could survive it. Di Shen, Wei Mingzi, Wu Shuang, Master Lume? Finally, when the era was broken and everything was about to return to darkness, Lin Sun's mind keenly captured an abnormal scene. In the nothingness, there was a cryptic aura that seemed eternal, hibernating in the darkness. Then, darkness fell, and everything fell into eternal silence. But Lin Sun finally knew that although the era was destroyed, some eternal aura did not dissipate, but hibernated in the darkness, waiting for the arrival of the next era. Is this aura the power that can be obtained in the eternal realm? Lin Sun murmured. He didn't expect that he could comprehend such incredible and shocking profundities from the Book of Eras. If so, doesn't it mean that the eternal gods of the 9th heaven can be fearless of the threat of the destruction of the era? Lin Sun couldn't help but be shocked when he thought of this. After a long time, Lin Sun sat cross-legged again and began to meditate. The mysteries of the 5 signs Tao tribulation and the eternal path were too far away for him to figure out now. His top priority now was to comprehend the mysteries of the immortal path. The beginning and prosperity of an era often meant the appearance of the immortal path. Only by figuring out its mysteries and grasping the essence of this key could he achieve a transformation. Another 10 days passed in a hurry. Lin Sun, who was sitting cross-legged in meditation, got up again and probed the Book of Eras with his divine sense. He had comprehended many mysteries, but some mysteries were still vague and difficult to figure out. Book Mountain. Outside the ancient hall, Jiang Yi sat in the rocking chair, eyes closed, and said, "You'd better leave now." A group of descendants stood there, looking indignant. They came to the Book Mountain to read the ancient books, but they were blocked by Jiang Yi. "If Lin Sun doesn't come out for a lifetime, we can't enter the hall for a lifetime?" Someone said angrily. "Don't worry, it won't be as long as a lifetime." Jiang Yi still closed his eyes and said indifferently, "What's more, Lin Sun has only been reading for 3 months. Maybe he will come out soon." In the end, these descendants had no choice but to leave. Jiang Yi sat in the rocking chair, feeling a little pressure in his heart. It had been 3 months. Many descendants came to the Book Mountain and wanted to enter the hall to read the ancient books, but they were rejected by Jiang Yi every time. This caused many big shots to be dissatisfied. Even some old people in the Yuan Su Pavilion were quite dissatisfied with this. But Jiang Yi had to do this. If it was just to enter the hall to read the ancient books, it would be fine. But what worried people was that if someone's purpose was to destroy Lin Sun's meditation, the consequences would be serious. In the past 3 months, many things had happened in Yuan sect, and undercurrents were surging, most of which were aimed at Lin Sun. Jiang Yi couldn't help but worry whether Lin Sun's state of mind would be affected when he came out of the 9th palace and knew what had happened in the past 3 months. Half a year after Lin Sun entered the 9th palace, a big shot came to the Book Mountain, Fu Wenli, the deputy head of Yuan Su Pavilion. "Greetings, Pavilion head Fu." Lying in the rocking chair, Jiang Yi didn't dare to neglect and stood up to salute. He was just an elder, far less powerful than Fu Wenli. "Is Lin Sun still reading the Book of Eras?" Fu Wenli asked expressionlessly. He was tall and thin, dressed in a black robe, with a pair of eyes that made people's hearts palpitate. "Yes," Jiang Yi nodded. Fu Wenli asked again, "Because of him, your Yuan Su Pavilion stopped other descendants from reading the ancient books?" Jiang Yi was silent for a moment and said, "Pavilion head Fu, you must know that the most taboo is to be disturbed by the outside world when reading the Book of Eras." Fu Wenli snorted. In the past years there were many people who borrowed the book, but there was never a rule that others were not allowed to borrow the ancient books. What do you think of the rules of the sect? Jiang Ye's heart sank. He realized that Fu Wenli was here to denounce him. As the deputy head of Yuan Su Pavilion, Fu Wenli was in charge of the criminal law. If he cared about this matter, it would be extremely troublesome and not something that an elder of Yuan Su Pavilion could contend with. I can give you a chance to turn over a new leaf, but you'd better not stand in my way. As he said, Fu Wenli was about to walk into the hall. Pavilion head Fu, wait. Jiang Yi suddenly raised his head and said, "My duty is to guard the Book Mountain. Even you, Pavilion head Fu, can't break in at will." He looked straight at Fu Wenli with a calm expression, dressed in cyan clothes and white hair. He didn't intend to give in. A cold light surged in Fu Wenli's eyes. He said, "You don't know how to appreciate favors. Since that's the case, don't blame me for punishing you according to the rules of the sect." A terrifying pressure spread from his body, causing Jiang Ye's expression to change. But he still didn't back down. He said, "Pavilion head Fu, you're wrong. The rules of Book Mountain have always been decided by my Yuanshu Pavilion. If you want me to give in, that's fine, but you need to get an order from my Yuanshu Pavilion." However, Fu Wenli nodded and said, "All right, that's what you said." As soon as he finished speaking, a figure appeared out of thin air at the foot of Book Mountain. He wore a red robe, a white jade belt around his waist, and a necklace. His face was as beautiful as jade, and he had a graceful bearing. It was the deputy pavilion head of Yuan Su Pavilion, Chi-Wen. "Jiang Yi, aren't you going to leave?" Chi-Wen said unhappily as soon as he arrived. Jiang Ye's heart became heavier. The arrival of two deputy pavilion heads meant that the situation was getting worse. At this moment, a dignified voice sounded. "I've always been in charge of Book Mountain. When did you, Chi-Wen, get involved?" Swish. The void fluctuated, and Duguyong's voice appeared. He glanced coldly at Chi-Wen. Jiang Yi was immediately relieved. Chi-Wen frowned and said, "Brother Dugu, there are no outsiders here. I just want to ask you, are you sure you want to get involved? Don't forget, your Dugu family is still entrenched in the seventh heaven." This was undoubtedly a threat. Duguyong said expressionlessly, "Don't push me too hard, otherwise I will do anything. You can think about the consequences yourself." Chi-Wen's face sank and he looked at Fu Wenli on the side. "Duguyong, remember what you said today." Fu Wenli glanced at Duguyong, then turned and left. Chi-Wen also left with her. This surprised Jiang Yi. They came in an aggressive manner, but now they left just like that? Duguyong's eyes were cold. "They didn't come to make things difficult for you at all, but to use this matter to test my attitude. Now that they already know my attitude, there is naturally no need to stay." "Doesn't this mean that from now on, they have already regarded you as an opponent?" Jiang Ye's face changed slightly. "Sooner or later, we will fall out. Don't pay attention to this," Duguyong said indifferently. "You just need to look after this place. No matter how arrogant they are, they dare not trample on the rules of the sect at this time." After speaking, his figure disappeared out of thin air. Jiang Yi stood there alone, silent for a while. Did the situation become so tense just because Lin Sun was about to break the realm? What were Fu Wenli and others afraid of? Jiang Yi vaguely felt that the immortal path Lin Sun was pursuing was very likely to be extremely special, so special that Fu Wenli and Chi-Wen, who had been hiding in the dark, couldn't sit still and wanted to stop all this. Chapter 28-25. The seventh month. Jiang Yi, who was lying in the rocking chair with his eyes closed, was awakened by footsteps. He stood up and saw a tall figure walking out from the depths of the hall. It was Lin Sun. But when he saw Lin Sun for the first time, Jiang Yi couldn't help but be stunned. Compared with 7 months ago, Lin Sun's cultivation didn't change much, but his aura was a little different. It was obscure, mysterious, and ethereal. Even with his cultivation in the Nirvana realm, he couldn't see through it. Faintly, Jiang Yi even felt an invisible majesty from Lin Sun. He couldn't help but ask, "Have you figured out some mysteries of the immortal path?" Lin Sun said casually, "The great Tao is within reach." It was just 4 words, but Jiang Yi was stunned at first, and then his eyes lit up. He said, "If you don't mind, can you tell me what you saw in the Book of Eras?" Lin Sun thought for a moment and said, "It's too much to say. Simply put, I saw a complete change of eras, saw immortality, saw the cycle of life and death, and also saw the path I should pursue." Jiang Yi was stunned for a moment, and his eyes became strange. "Do you know that you're the first person to see a complete change of eras in these countless years?" He emphasized the word complete. Lin Sun was stunned. "Not before." "No," Jiang Yi said with certainty. Lin Sun thought in his heart. If so, didn't it mean that no one had seen the eternal traces of the era's destruction before? He didn't tell Jiang Yi about this because he thought he had kept it a secret. But who would have thought that just seeing a complete change of eras was the only one since ancient times? "I don't know what path you're pursuing, but I'm sure that you've probably understood all the mysteries hidden in the Book of Eras." Jiang Yi couldn't help but be amazed. "Senior, you flatter me." Lin Sun smiled and cupped his hands. During the 7 months of meditation, he experienced the changes of eras again and again, as if he had gone through the cycle of eras again and again. The mysteries made him immersed in them many times and unable to extricate himself. This kind of understanding was too rare. In the end, when he finally realized the essence of the immortal path he was seeking, it was like he'd firmly grasped a key that made Lin suddenly see the light. The change of eras, the vicissitudes of the world, the evolution of the great Tao, the rise and fall of all things, the 5 signs of Tao tribulation, the traces of eternity, it's enough for me to seek my own path. When do you plan to prove your Tao? Jiang Yi was looking forward to it. "Anytime," Lin Sun said casually. This answer exceeded Jiang Ye's expectations once more. He was an eternal rebirth realm expert, and he'd witnessed the scene of countless disciples attaining the eternal Tao in his lifetime. However, this was the first time he had heard such a casual and confident reply. It was as if proving the Tao to him was as easy as pie. After calming himself down, Jiang Yi said, "Lin Sun, I don't know whether I should say something or not. Or perhaps, if I don't tell you now and it's exposed when you break through, then it's extremely likely that it would have a detrimental effect on your breakthrough." Lin Sun narrowed his eyes and said, "Please tell me." Jiang Yi sighed softly and said, "You'd better be prepared. After all, you're about to prove your Tao. If there's something wrong with your state of mind at this time, it's very easy to be affected." Lin Sun realized the seriousness of the problem. After a moment of silence, he said, "Those enemies must have done a lot of unfavorable things to me during this period of time, trying to give me a mental blow before I prove my Tao, right?" Jiang Yi nodded. These things couldn't be concealed, because once Lin Sun proved his Tao, he would be the focus of everyone in Yuan sect. At that time, if the enemy suddenly exposed it, the consequences would be unimaginable. "Senior, please tell me," Lin Sun said calmly. Jiang Yi stared at Lin Sun for a moment. Seeing that Lin Sun's mood didn't fluctuate, he told him some sensational things that happened in Yuan sect in the past 7 months. In the first month after you entered Book Mountain, Xiang Xiaoyuan, an inherited disciple of the 7th peak, was punished by Yuan Sky Pavilion. She was fined 3 years' salary and 50 strokes of the cane. As soon as he said this, Jiang Ye's voice was interrupted. 50 strokes of the cane? Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep. What rule did she break? It is said that she hurt someone during a dispute, Jiang Yi sighed. There are jade slips to prove what happened. It was indeed Xiang Xiaoyuan who started the fight. Miss Xiao Yuan is not an impulsive person. Do you have the jade slips? I would like to have a look, Lin Sun asked. Jiang Yi hesitated for a moment and handed a jade slip to Lin Sun. Buzz. With a wave of fluctuation, the jade slip turned into a scene of light and shadow. In front of a blessed land, Xiang Xiao Yuan had an enraged expression. She suddenly attacked, sending a saber strike at a woman in a light yellow dress. Then, the light and shadow disappeared. That's all? Lin Sun frowned. This is enough, Jiang Yi said. Jiang Yi said, the incident happened on the 7th peak, and many people saw what happened. Originally, Peak Lord Tian Wu Kuo wanted to keep the peace, but who would have thought that the Sky Origin Pavilion would intervene and take Xiang Xiao Yuan away despite Tian Wu Kuo's objections. After a pause, he said, the reason for this is that someone said that you won't be able to live for long. They used this matter to provoke Xiang Xiao Yuan, saying that she was lucky enough to enter the Yuan sect because of you. As long as you're dead, she'll suffer too. After listening to this, Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said, So, Miss Xiao Yuan was beaten 50 times with the cane in front of everyone? Jiang Yi nodded. Lin Sun took a deep breath and restrained his killing intent. No matter what cultivation one had, one would suffer bone-piercing pain under the cane of Yuan sect. After 30 strokes of the cane, one would be better off dead than alive. Compared with the pain of the flesh, the most important thing was that the future generations of the 9 peaks would witness the torture. The blow to one's dignity was the most severe. It was undoubtedly a great humiliation for a beautiful woman like Xiang Xiao Yuan to suffer such a punishment in front of so many people. This made Lin Sun unable to restrain his killing intent. Because in the final analysis it was all because of him. Senior, who took Miss Xiao Yuan away? Lin Sun asked. The only one who could make Tian Wucua unable to stop is Fu Wenli, the vice head of Yuan Kong Pavilion, Jiang Yi said. Lin Sun nodded and said, Senior, is there anything else? Tell me everything. Don't worry, I can bear it. Jiang Yi let out a long sigh and no longer hesitated. Not long after Xiang Xiao Yuan was punished, Yi Chunjun, the future leader of the 9th peak, was seriously injured when he went out on a mission. His cultivation was almost destroyed. It is said that the one who injured him was the descendant of the ancestral court of witchcraft. After that, Huang Muji, the future leader of the 9th peak, was dissatisfied with the delay of his monthly salary. He argued with someone in Treasure Sky Hall, and was suppressed on the spot. Now he is imprisoned in the Reflection Prison. Qin Wuyu, the peak leader of the 9th peak, questioned the punishment of Yuan Kong Pavilion and had a conflict with Qi Xiaoyun, the vice head of Yuan Kong Pavilion. Fortunately, the conflict was not fierce, but because of this, Qin Wuyu was impeached by a group of big shots led by Qi Xiaoyun. Although no decision has been made in the end, Qin Wuyu is now in an extremely bad situation. Speaking of this, Jiang Yi could not help but glance at Lin Sun, but he saw that Lin Sun looked calm and emotionless, only his eyes were terrifyingly cold. Senior, please continue, Lin Sun said. Jiang Yi said worriedly, if you are unhappy, it is good to vent it in time, so that it will not affect your state of mind when you are proving Tao. Lin Sun said calmly, they can't destroy me, so they use these despicable means to attack and affect my state of mind. I will not let them get what they want. After a pause, he continued, as long as the peak leader of the 9th peak and those senior brothers and sisters are fine, I will help them get an explanation sooner or later. Jiang Yi could not help but be shocked by the resolute attitude under the calm appearance. He could see that Lin Sun was extremely angry, but he did not let it get to his head. On the contrary, this young man was as calm as snow and terrifyingly steady. Thinking about it, it made sense. The successor of Fang Xiyuan, who had experienced countless hardships and slaughters from the vast 1,000 battle domains until now, had experienced countless life and death tribulations, had probably long since reached an unimaginable state of mind. How could he be so easily affected? Jiang Yi took a deep breath and said, The last thing is that not long ago, Feng Qixi and Lu Yunfeng, the successors of Yuankong Pavilion, were put into the reflection prison because they disobeyed the orders of Vice Pavilion head Fu Wenli. Lin Sun fell into silence after hearing this. After a long time, he said softly, "In that case, everyone in the Yuan sect who is related to me has been implicated? They're really ruthless. In order to stop me from proving my Tao, they're willing to do anything. These are just small matters. After all, it happened in the Yuan sect. There is still a chance to change in the future." Suddenly, a dignified voice sounded, and the figure of Vice Pavilion head Dugu Yong appeared out of thin air. "Your Excellency." Jiang Yi cupped his hands and saluted, then introduced Dugu Yong to Lin Sun. Disciple Lin Sun greets senior. Lin Sun also saluted. This was the first time he met Dugu Yuren's granduncle. "Don't stand on ceremony." Dugu Yong waved his hand. "I am here to tell you some things that happened outside the Yuan sect." Lin Sun's pupils shrank. He suddenly realized something and said, "Did they make a move on my senior brothers and sisters? Or did they make a move on the Luo family?" "Yes." Dugu Yong nodded. All of a sudden, Lin Sun's face was filled with killing intent, and the accumulated hatred in his heart almost went out of control. Only then did he realize how despicable those enemies were. It was far from as simple as he thought. But soon, Lin Sun calmed down. He suddenly raised his head to look at Dugu Yong and said, "Senior, since you came to tell me this, if my guess is right, the outside world should not be that bad, right?" "Yes." Dugu Yong's lips curled into a smile. He was indeed worthy of being the successor that the master of the square inch had waited for all his life. His temperament and reaction were both top-notch. The successor of the square inch is not so easy to deal with. They exhausted all means and tried to use some power in the ancestral court of the spirit sect to suppress your senior brothers and sisters. But things did not go as they wished, and they lost some power instead. Dugu Yong said frankly, "This matter was personally sent by your third senior sister Rosu. She wanted you to prove Tao in peace and not be affected by the outside world." Chapter 28-26. It turned out to be the news from the third senior sister. Lin Sun breathed a sigh of relief. As for Luo family, when those guys sent their forces to Dragon's Pine Mountain, the sixth heaven, there was no one there. Dugu Yong said and handed a jade slip to Lin Sun. "This is the news from your senior sister apprentice Juanhuan." Lin Sun was stunned. He took the jade slip and opened it, feeling much more relaxed. There was only one sentence in the jade slip: "Luo family is fine." "Do you feel much better now?" Dugu Yong asked with a smile. Lin Sun cupped his hands and said, "Thank you for telling me this." Dugu Yong said, "Fangtsuan Mountain and our Yuan sect have a common enemy. Some old guys, and I don't want to see your state of mind affected at this critical moment." After a pause, he continued, "When you plan to break the realm, I will personally protect you. But when do you decide to break the realm?" Lin Sun was silent for a moment and then said, "Tomorrow." Dugu Yong was surprised and seemed to be slightly surprised. Jiang Yi explained with a smile, "Lin Sun once said that he could prove the Tao anytime and anywhere." Dugu Yong chewed on the two words anytime, anywhere, for a moment before a peculiar expression arose in his eyes. It was merely 4 words, yet the meaning they represented was too shocking. If Zhu Xian ancestor wanted to prove the Tao, he often needed to find an illusory opportunity. This opportunity was like a flash of enlightenment, a sudden thought, and also like an omen in the unseen world. It was impossible to grasp. Even a peerless genius with a terrifying foundation couldn't touch the threshold of the Tao for thousands of years if he didn't wait for this opportunity. Because attaining the Tao and becoming eternal was completely unrelated to one's own cultivation, natural talent, comprehension ability, and it wasn't related to bitter and diligent cultivation either. All it required was a strand of critical factor. But since the ancient times until now, this strand of opportunity had been difficult for countless peerless geniuses to die. In the 9 peaks, there were so many peerless geniuses in Ju Xian ancestor realm, each more abnormal than the other. But most of them had been stuck in this realm for hundreds, thousands of years, and even thousands of years, and still hadn't proved the Tao. Compared with this, the meaning of Lin Sun's words of breaking the realm anytime and anywhere was naturally shocking. Where do you plan to prove your Tao? Duguyong calmed himself down and asked. Lin answered without hesitation, the 9th peak. This answer surprised Duguyong and Jiang Yi. But after thinking about it carefully, the two of them somewhat understood. The current 9th peak successor, Yi Chunjun, was being punished, and the peak master, Qin Wuyu, was being impeached by a group of important people led by the vice pavilion master, Qi Shaoyan. He was in a difficult situation. It could be said that the entire 9th summit was in a precarious situation. Under such circumstances, Lin chose to break the realm here, which was undoubtedly to show his attitude. Sir, do we need to hide the news that Lin Sun will prove his Tao at the 9th peak for the time being? Jiang Yi looked at Duguyong. Duguyong looked at Lin Sun. Senior, there's no need to hide such a trifle. I want my enemies to see with their own eyes how I, Lin Sun, attain immortality. Lin Sun's dark eyes were deep, and there was a disdainful momentum of swallowing the whole world. All right. Duguyong nodded in agreement. Under the watchful eyes of the public, those old guys who wanted to kill Lin Sun would not dare to obstruct him unscrupulously. After 7 months, the news that Lin Sun walked out of Book Mountain was immediately known by all the people in the Yuan sect, which caused countless undercurrents. When they learned that Lin Sun would attain immortality at the 9th peak tomorrow, it was like a shocking thunder that resounded in the Yuan sect. Countless people were shocked. Lin Sun joined the sect for less than a year, and he's going to attain immortality? Among the descendants of the 9 peaks, many people were dumbfounded. It seems that Lin Sun has grasped the opportunity to attain immortality after reading The Immortal Inheritance for 7 months in the 9th palace, someone analyzed calmly. However, so many things have happened in the past 7 months. Isn't he worried that his state of mind will be affected? Let's wait and see. I'm afraid it won't be easy for him to break the realm this time. All kinds of discussions sounded in the 3 pavilions and the 9 peak. Small Xian house. Yuran, go to the 9th peak with me tomorrow. Let's see how he attains immortality. I have a hunch that the disaster he will face this time is destined to be unprecedented. Duguyong said softly. Yuran nodded. Her starry eyes sparkled, and she was as elegant as before. However, when she mentioned Lin Sun, she couldn't help but have indescribable complex emotions. Elder Xiao, elderly, would you like to go to the 9th peak with me tomorrow? Fang Daoping asked casually in Yuan Qing Pavilion. Xiao Wenyuan and Li Zhen looked at each other and agreed happily. Not far away, Tang Qiu and Dong Huangqing couldn't help frowning when they saw this scene. Then they turned around and left together. I don't know what they're planning. Xiao Wenyuan sighed as he watched them disappear. Of course it's related to preventing Lin Sun from attaining immortality. Fang Daoping said calmly. In fact, they've done a lot of things in the past 7 months to affect Lin Sun's Taoist heart and prevent him from breaking the realm. Isn't it dangerous for Lin Sun to attain immortality this time? Xiao Wenyuan said. They don't dare to act recklessly when it comes to attaining immortality. In the final analysis, it depends on whether Lin Sun can really pass this tribulation. Fang Daoping pondered. Or it can be said that his path is different from others. The more powerful he is in the Ju Xian ancestor realm, the more terrible the tribulation he will face when he attains immortality. Xiao Wenyuan was shocked. Thinking of Lin Sun's past achievements, he could be regarded as an invincible existence in the Ju Xian ancestor realm. In this case, how terrible the tribulation he would face when he attains immortality. We'll see tomorrow, Fang Daoping said. If Lin Sun fails this time, it means that a good seedling that the master of the square inch has been waiting for will be destroyed. If he succeeds, He may not be able to change the overall situation of Yuan's sect in a short time, but it's destined that no one can suppress Lin Sun's path in the future. At that time, his enemies will have a hard time. Yuan Kong Pavilion. Wild Cloud House. Xiaojiu, take Xian Yu and go to the 9th peak with me tomorrow. Xian Failing said casually. Xian Juyin was excited and his eyes lit up. Great ancestor, do you suddenly have a conscience? During this period, he had been grounded in the Wild Cloud House. He almost knew nothing about the outside world except for cultivation. He had long been bored by the boredom and felt like he was in prison. I want you to see how Lin Sun attains immortality. Xian Failing said slowly. Attaining immortality? Xian Juyin was stunned. His eyes widened little by little. He almost couldn't believe his ears. How long had it been? Is it a big blow? Xian Failing was very satisfied with Xian Juyin's performance. It would be better if he could stimulate Xian Juyin to work hard through this matter. But the next moment, Xian Juyin sighed with emotion. I've known for a long time that I can't compare with this guy. Otherwise, I will be hurt again and again. Now it seems that my previous idea is absolutely wise. Before he finished his words, he was slapped on the back of his head. You're so useless. Xian Failing was really disappointed that Lin Sun didn't live up to his expectations. This guy was too lazy and sloppy. He was not like a son of Xian family at all. Xian Juyin laughed and ran away quickly. He wanted to tell the good news to Jintian Xianyue. The 3rd peak. In Nan Bo Hong's blessed land. Fu Wenli and Qi Xiaoyun, deputy head of Yuan Kong Pavilion, Qi Wen, deputy head of Yuan Void Pavilion, Tang Qiu, deputy head of Yuan Qing Pavilion, and other big shots sat in the highest position. On both sides were Yun Tianming, the head of the 2nd peak, Nan Bo Hong, the head of the 3rd peak, Mu Yunjing, the head of the 4th peak, and some elders of the 3 pavilions, such as Dong Wangqing. The atmosphere was depressing. What do you think of the evil Fang Siyuan who will attest to immortality tomorrow? Fu Wenli's voice was low and expressionless. He should have known what happened in the past 7 months, but he still chose to attest to immortality tomorrow. It seems that he is also afraid of any accident. The skinny Tang Qiu said in a hoarse voice. Do you think his state of mind will be affected? Fu Wenli asked. Tang Qiu was silent and shook his head. It's hard to guess. If his state of mind is not affected, why is he so anxious to break through tomorrow? And why did he choose to do it in the 9th peak? Qi Wen said indifferently. All this is enough to prove that the experience of Qin Wuyu and Yi Chunjun has caused his state of mind to fluctuate. This is a big taboo in attaining the Tao. No, these are not enough. There is no way to ensure that he will fail. Fu Wenli frowned. The ancestral court of the spirit sect can no longer be counted on. Ruosu and the evil Fang Siyuan have already gained a firm foothold in the spirit sect. It will be difficult to shake them in a short time. In this way, it is obviously impossible to affect Lin Sun's Taoist heart by attacking them. Qi Xiaoyun suddenly said. As for the Luo family, they have already moved away when the sect recruited descendants last year. They disappeared without a trace. It is also impossible to find the Luo family in a short time. These words caused a wisp of gloominess to appear in the space between the brows of all the great figures in the surroundings. They all knew that whether it was to deal with the other descendants of Fang Siyuan or the Luo family, as long as they could defeat one of them, it would be enough to threaten Lin Sun and prevent him from attaining the Tao. But now it was impossible. In the silence, Fu Wenli suddenly asked, Haven't the forces that went to the Starry Sky ancient path come back yet? Everyone narrowed their eyes slightly and looked at each other, but no one answered. Half a year ago, they had sent forces to the Starry Sky ancient path to capture Lin Sun's relatives to threaten him. If so, it was enough to give Lin Sun a fatal blow. But half a year had passed, and there was no news. No one knew whether the forces that went to the Starry Sky ancient path had succeeded or not. Fu Wenli was silent for a moment and made a decision. Well, time is pressing. We can't count on these. The urgent thing is to find a way to prevent Lin Sun from breaking through tomorrow. P.S. There will be an outbreak the day after tomorrow, at the end of the month. Chapter 28-27. There was another moment of silence in the hall. The ancestral court of Yuan sect was not under their control after all. They could not openly stop or attack Lin Sun's breakthrough. Otherwise, if the other bigwigs of Yuan sect were forced into a corner, anything could happen. This was not something they could bear. Let Qi Lingzhen go to find Lin Sun. Qi Xiaoyun suddenly said, "Let's have a good talk with Lin Sun tonight." The ninth peak. Peak Master, it's my fault that you and the other senior brothers and sisters got into trouble. Lin Sun cupped his hands and apologized to Qin Wu. After returning from Book Mountain, he went straight to the ninth peak and visited Qin Wu immediately. Compared to 7 months ago, Qin Wu was obviously a little tired. Obviously, being impeached by Qi Xiaoyun and the other bigwigs was a great blow to him. Yi Chunjun and the other successors have no intention of blaming you for this. If you really work hard, focus on breaking through tomorrow and step into the immortal realm. Qin Wu said in a low voice, "You can't be fooled by those enemies. Their intention is obvious. It's nothing more than to affect your state of mind and prevent you from breaking through." Lin Sun said casually, "Don't worry, Peak Master. I'm already 90% sure that I will not let them succeed." Looking at the calm Lin Sun, Qin Wu could not help but be stunned. Who dared to say that they were 90% sure that they could achieve the immortal realm? But it just so happened that Lin Sun spoke of it so casually, and it seemed as if attaining immortality was a trivial matter to him. It gave people a strange feeling. "Don't be careless," Qin Wu reminded after thinking for a moment. Lin Sun smiled and nodded. Father, Qi Lingzhen, the first successor of Yuan Kong Pavilion, and several others came to the ninth peak to see junior brother Lin. At this time, Qin Ruoling came from afar and said quickly. Qin Wu narrowed his eyes and said decisively, "No, let them leave. Lin Sun was going to prove the immortal realm tomorrow, but these people suddenly came tonight. Obviously, they had ulterior motives." "Wait." Seeing that Qin Ruoling was about to leave, Lin Sun said, "I'll go see them and see what they want to say." Qin Wu frowned. "Lin Sun, this is not the time to let your emotions affect your decisions. Don't worry, Peak Master. I know what I'm doing. After all, I'm a disciple of Yuankong Pavilion. If I refuse to see them, it will seem that I'm timid and afraid of them." Lin Sun smiled and turned away. This kid, Qin Wu felt somewhat helpless. "Father, I think junior brother Lin's action proves that he is confident and not afraid of being disturbed by external things. If he blindly retreats, then it would instead seem that his mental state isn't strong enough. In this way, even if he attempts to attain the Tao, he'll probably make a mistake." Qin Ruoling whispered. Qin Wu was startled, and he pondered for a moment before coming to an understanding. He patted his daughter's shoulder in a gratified manner and said, "Little girl, you're right. Those with a heart like a boulder are unafraid of being assaulted by winds from all directions." Outside the ninth summit, Qi Lingzhen, Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaoxing stood side by side. There were currently 37 disciples in the Sky Origin Pavilion, and 5 of them had already stepped into the immortal realm. Qi Lingzhen and the other 3 were 4 of them, and Qi Lingzhen was known as the number 1 disciple of the Sky Origin Pavilion, and he had the greatest influence among his peers. He had an imposing appearance and a handsome face. He wore a bright yellow robe, and his body was surrounded by the aura of the immortal principle. He looked like a god descending to the mortal world. His aura was astonishing. Anyone who saw him would probably be stunned by his beauty. After all, among the immortal realm experts, Qi Lingzhen, who had cultivated for less than 3,000 years, was considered extremely young. Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaoxing also had their own styles and auras. As the immortal realm experts, their strength wasn't any weaker than the older generation. When Lin Sun's figure walked out of the mountain gate, he saw his fellow disciples cultivating in the Sky Origin Pavilion. Their faces didn't change much, and they were very calm. At the same time, Qi Lingzhen and the others also fixed their eyes on Lin Sun at the same time, looking him up and down. In fact, this was the first time they met each other. "What business do you have with me?" Lin Sun broke the silence first. "You don't even want to call me senior brother? It seems that you don't want to see us this time," Zhong Liran chuckled. He was tall, wore a purple robe, and carried a halberd on his back. His aura was domineering and fierce. "Nominally, we are indeed brothers, but there is no one else here, so there is no need to hide. Do you think that I regard you as my friends?" Lin Sun said casually. Zhong Liran's eyes narrowed slightly as he said, "You're quite straightforward and straightforward. Then I might as well be frank. Feng Qixi and Lu Yunfeng were punished by the Talisman Pavilion masterly, and it was I who did it. Do you want to know how they were punished at that time?" He no longer concealed the provocation in his words. Lin Sun said calmly, "No matter how severe the punishment is, as long as they are not dead, I will help them seek justice in the future." Zhong Liran laughed and his face was full of disdain. "Junior brother, you haven't set foot on the immortal way yet, but you are so arrogant. Aren't you afraid of biting your tongue? Did all of you come here to talk nonsense?" Lin Sun laughed as well. "If that's the case, I don't mind chatting with all of you. You are Zhong Liran, right? Your appearance is somewhat similar to Zhong Lixiao. Do you want to know how I killed him?" These words caused Zhong Liran's face to instantly sink, and his eyes were filled with killing intent. Zhong Lixiao was his younger half-brother. Lin Sun ignored him and looked at Gu Xiaoyin with a smile. "Gu Xiaoyin, you should be from the Gu clan. I remember that I have killed many powerhouses of the Gu clan in the past few years, but I can't remember their names for a while. Why don't you help me recall?" Gu Xiaoyin was stunned at first, and then his expression became unsightly. But before he could speak, Lin Sun had already looked at Fu Chaoxing and said, "As far as I know, there is no immortal emperor clan like the Fu clan in the 7th and 8th heaven, but you are able to associate with these people. It seems that you really aren't simple." Fu Chaoxing frowned. He wasn't sure whether Lin Sun was praising him or scolding him. "However, in my opinion, people like you, at best, you can only help them charge and break through the enemy lines. It's really sad," Lin Sun said, then sighed. "You are already an immortal-level disciple of the Void Pavilion. How dazzling you are, but you have become a minion of others. How sad is that?" All of a sudden, Fu Chaoxing's face also became extremely ugly. Lin Sun's words pierced the deepest dignity in his heart. Because just as Lin Sun said, he was selected by the Qi clan a long time ago and brought to the 8th heaven to cultivate. Until he entered the Yuan sect and became the successor of the Void Pavilion, everything was arranged by the Qi clan. The reason why he was valued so highly by the Qi clan was because his foundation and talent were indeed monstrous and abnormal. In return, he naturally followed the Qi clan's lead. But in Lin Sun's words, he became a minion of the Qi clan. It was full of humiliation. When Lin Sun looked at Qi Lingzhen, the latter seemed to know that Lin Sun would not say anything good, so he immediately said, "How long are you going to talk nonsense with us?" Lin Sun smiled disapprovingly and said, "That's up to you. I don't know what you want to do here. I thought you wanted to take advantage of this night to chat with me." Qi Lingzhen and others frowned. At this moment, Lin Sun was like a rascal, fearless and unrestrained. His words were sarcastic and annoying. "We came here to tell you one thing." Taking a deep breath, Qi Lingzhen said calmly. "Say it," Lin Sun said. Qi Lingzhen said, "Half a year ago, there was a force that left the eternal world, crossed many planes of the vast world, and went to your hometown as a guest." His voice was long. Everyone's eyes were fixed on Lin Sun. But Lin Sun was silent for a moment and said calmly, "And then?" Qi Lingjun said seriously, "It's said that Junior Brother's hometown is in a place called the Mortal World. That place is really remote and very difficult to find. Fortunately, their hard work pays off and they finally arrived there." After that, he stared at Lin Sun, but was disappointed to find that Lin Sun's expression did not change at all. "Go on," Lin Sun said. Qi Lingjun laughed heartily and said, "That's it. I'm sure Junior Brother has already guessed something. If we continue talking, it might affect Junior Brother's Dao proving tomorrow. That would be our fault." Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaoxing also laughed. Their eyes were cold and wantonly. At this moment, a terrible murderous aura suddenly emerged from Lin Sun's body, like an overwhelming storm, which made the nearby void buzz and wail. On the 9th peak, there was a burst of exclamation, and the sound of something breaking through the air swept over. Then Qin Wuyu, Mo Lanshan, Qin Ruoling and others appeared. When they saw Lin Sun, who was obviously irritated, their faces darkened and their hearts tightened. At this moment, Lin Sun's handsome face was full of murderous intent, and his eyes were deep and cold, as if he would go berserk at any time. In the distance, Qi Lingjun and others were laughing heartily, relaxed and complacent. This infuriated Qin Wuyu. However, before he could speak, Lin Sun stopped him. "Peak Master, let me have a good chat with these senior brothers." His voice was terrifyingly calm. "Ha, did you hear that? Our junior brother Lin Sun finally calls us senior brothers. How strange," Zhong Liran said with a smile. Qi Lingjun said leisurely, "Junior brother, what else do you want to say? We are all ears." Lin Sun's loss of self-control at this moment was seen by them, and they all felt carefree and relaxed. This had achieved their purpose of coming here tonight. "What you want is nothing more than to destroy me. Similarly, I can't wait to kill you one by one. In this case, do you dare to fight with me in the Heaven's Judgment Field?" As Lin Sun spoke, his killing intent, which had been soaring into the sky, disappeared at this moment. He was as calm as before. Chapter 28:28. The Heaven's Judgment Field. This was the place to solve the conflicts between disciples. When the disciples couldn't fight due to the rules of the sect, they would choose to solve the conflicts in the Heaven's Judgment Field. When they heard Lin Sun's angry proposal for a duel, Qi Lingjun and others were all stunned, and then they couldn't help laughing. How much did this guy's state of mind suffer to do such a ridiculous thing? Did he really think that he could succeed tomorrow? Wishful thinking. Near the mountain gate, Qin Wuyu and others became more and more worried. Lin Sun was obviously irritated and lost his composure. However, he had calmed down at this moment, and it didn't seem that he was out of control. "Don't dare." Lin Sun ignored everyone's reaction and looked straight at Qi Lingjun and others. "Why not?" The smile on Qi Lingjun's face disappeared. With contempt and pity in his eyes, he said, "But don't you think it's too early to say this? After all, you're going to prove the immortality tomorrow, but who can be sure that you can succeed? Even if we agree now, junior apprentice brother, what if you accidentally fail to prove your Tao? Then what's the point of this arranged battle?" Zhong Liran said with a smile. "So you've agreed. That's good. After I break through tomorrow, I'll see you in the Heaven's Judgment Field. At that time, I'll fight to my death." Lin Sun looked calmer, and there was no trace of emotion in his voice. This made Qi Lingjun and others laugh again. The more Lin Sun behaved like this, the more certain they were that the previous incident had impacted Lin Sun's state of mind. Qi Lingjun said, "Do you know that there are two kinds of duels in the Heaven's Judgment Field? One is to determine the winner, and the other is to fight to the death. However, this kind of duel must be unanimously approved by the 3 deputy heads of Yuankong Pavilion." After a pause, he smiled and said, "Of course, you can rest assured that Fu Wenli and Qi Xiaoyun won't refuse your proposal. As for Xian Failing, I think Xian Failing won't refuse this kind of thing either." Lin Sun interrupted. Lin Sun, you're too impulsive. Not too far away, Qin Wuyu couldn't help but remind Chen Shi. The urgent matter at hand is to calm your heart and make preparations for tomorrow's confirmation of the Tao. You must not be affected by others. Qin Wuyu's words made Qi Lingzhen and others laugh more freely. Look, even the head of the ninth peak could see that Lin Sun's state of mind was out of control. Soon, Qi Lingzhen and the others left one after another. All of them were in high spirits as if they had won. Lin Sun, why are you so muddle-headed? You clearly know that they came to disturb your state of mind, so why did you still fall for their trick? Qin Wuyu was furious. Peak Master, there's nothing wrong with my state of mind. Happiness, rage, resentment, hatred, infatuation, madness. They've been unable to affect me for a long time. My happiness and hatred are born from my state of mind, so there's no need to suppress or restrain them. Lin Sun said calmly, as Buddhism said, wine and meat pass through the intestines, but Buddha stays in the heart. If people learn from me, it's like entering the devil's path. Once they break through this barrier, they can do whatever they want without fear or worry. Qin Wuyu was startled and asked, You're really fine? Lin Sun said with a smile, Peak Master, you're too naive. At this moment, there was not a trace of killing intent in him. He was natural and relaxed. Qin Wuyu was speechless and let out a long sigh of relief. As long as there's nothing wrong with my state of mind, it's fine. But why do you still want to challenge them? Do you know that they have been immersed in the longevity realm for many years, and their immortal laws have already been refined to perfection? Even if you can successfully break through tomorrow, you've just stepped into the threshold of the longevity realm. There's a big gap between you and them. If you challenge them rashly, won't it give them a chance to eliminate you? Lin Sun said, Peak Master, if I don't challenge them now, I'm afraid they won't dare to agree after tomorrow. They want to kill me, so I'll give them a chance. But in the end, we'll see who can kill who. Qin Wuyu stared at Lin Sun for a moment and suddenly said, Am I really too naive? Lin Sun laughed, Peak Master, you're too concerned. Qin Wuyu patted Lin Sun on the shoulder and turned away. Then I'll wait for you to surprise me tomorrow. Late at night, Lin Sun sat alone in the cave residence, his expression uncertain. In order to prevent him from attaining immortality, those enemies had done everything they could. In the Yuan sect, the ninth peak was implicated. Xiang Xiaoyuan, Yi Chunjun, Feng Qishi, Flowing Cloud Peak, and others were punished one after another. In the outside world, Senior Sister Ruo Su and the others were attacked in the ancestral court of the Spirit sect. Although they survived in the end, it could be seen how despicable and vicious those enemies were. It was the same for the Luo family. If they hadn't evacuated Dragon's Pine Mountain in advance, the consequences would have been unimaginable. If that was the case, it was within Lin Sun's acceptable range. But what Qi Lingzhen and the others said tonight had touched Lin Sun's reverse scale. In the Starry Sky Ancient Path, there was the Lin family, the Yuanshi sect he founded, and Zhao Jingxian and her son Lin Fan. This was the softest bottom line in Lin Sun's heart. But now those enemies threatened him with this, which made Lin Sun completely angry. If my friends and family are in trouble, I'll sacrifice the lives of all your people. Lin Sun murmured in his heart. This was a conspiracy to prevent him from proving immortality. He knew and saw through it, but the hatred and anger in his heart were not so easy to subdue. In fact, Lin Sun didn't intend to suppress this hatred and anger at all. He let this hatred and killing intent, which were like lava erupting, roll up and down his body. On the other hand, he was seriously experiencing this feeling of extreme hatred and anger. That kind of power was enough to make anyone's state of mind chaotic, but Lin Sun's face was terrifyingly calm, and his mind was not affected at all. Late at night, Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, and other big shots all learned what happened in front of the ninth peak. After Qi Lingzhen and the others returned, they directly took out a jade slip without any nonsense. The jade slip reflected scenes, clearly showing Lin Sun's performance at that time. Seeing the end, Fu Wenli and other big shots couldn't help laughing. How could they not see that Lin Sun's state of mind was chaotic? If he fails tomorrow and knows that even we don't know what happened to his friends and family in his hometown, how will he react? A big shot said with a smile. An unconfirmed matter had affected Lin Sun's state of mind, which was very interesting in itself. Tomorrow, let's go to the 9th peak together and witness this man's failure, Fu Wenli said slowly. The next morning, dawn had just broken, but there were already many figures gathered in front of the 9th peak. They had all come from all over the primordial realm before dawn. There were descendants of the 9 peaks and the 3 pavilions. There were also a group of big shots who held important positions. Practically everyone in the Yuan sect had been drawn over to the 9th peak today, and such a magnificent scene caused some of the successors to be extremely shocked in their hearts. The 9 deputy heads of the 3 pavilions are all here. The masters of the 9 peaks, the elders and deacons of the 3 pavilions are also here. This kind of scene has rarely happened before. People discussed in low voices. Everyone realized that Lin Sun's proving at the 9th peak today was destined to be a big deal. Have you heard that Lin Sun was enraged last night? He threatened to fight with Qi Lingzhen, Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaosheng in the Heaven's Judgment Field after he proves his Tao. He will fight to the death. It seems that Lin Sun's state of mind has been affected. Lin Sun, how could he be so stupid? If he fails this time, all his previous prestige will be destroyed. Even if he wins, how can he be a match for Qi Lingzhen and the others? Xian Juyin also came. When he heard these discussions, he couldn't help but be stunned. Then, he flew into a rage and said, "Great Ancestor, are those ignorant bastards trying to harm my brother Lin?" He stood beside Xian Feiling, and the nearby area was full of big shots of the Yuan Church. As soon as he said this, Fang Daoping, Du Guyong, and the others showed strange expressions. Not far away, Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Tang Qiu, and other deputy heads couldn't help but frown. However, they didn't bother to argue with a junior. I don't know which bastards are ignorant. Xian Feiling patted Xian Juyin's head and said, "Just watch the ceremony. Do you think anyone will dare to hurt your brother Lin when he proves his Tao?" "That's true." Xian Juyin nodded. As he was speaking, his eyes lit up and he suddenly waved his hand. "Brother Lin, look here. We've finally met." His voice was excited and his face was full of smiles. At the top of the 9th peak in the distance, Lin Sun's tall figure appeared. When he heard the voice, he looked up subconsciously and saw Xian Juyin. Immediately, he said in surprise, "Why are you also in the Yuan Church?" Xian Juyin said happily, "I came earlier than you, but during this time, my great ancestor has been—" Before he finished his words, Xian Feiling hit him on the back of the head and said angrily, "Watch your words." Xian Juyin was embarrassed and waved to Lin Sun. "Anyway, you focus on breaking through today. With my great ancestor here, I'd like to see which bastard dares to disturb you." His words made Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, and other big shots feel uncomfortable. They wanted to slap this blabbermouth boy to death. Lin Sun immediately smiled and nodded. After that, he was stunned once more because he saw a familiar and beautiful figure in snow-white clothes with a golden belt around her waist. Her jet-black hair hung down to her waist like a waterfall, and her peerlessly beautiful face that was beautiful like a painting was covered in excitement and joy at this moment. However, even though she was extremely excited, she secretly suppressed it. "Miss Xianyue." Lin Sun almost couldn't believe his eyes. He was not too surprised that Xian Juyin appeared in the Yuan Church. After all, Xian Feiling was there. However, Lin Sun was surprised that Xianyue also appeared here. "Child." Xianyue finally couldn't hold back the joy and excitement in her heart. Her cherry lips trembled slightly, and she called out softly. After so many years, she finally saw the man who haunted her dreams again. She couldn't control her emotions and her heart also trembled slightly. Her pair of jade-like hands clenched subconsciously. P.S. It will break out tomorrow. Around noon tomorrow, there will be 2 consecutive chapters. Chapter 28-29. Miss Xianyue, long time no see. On the top of the 9th peak, Lin Sun laughed and said aloud. It was a pleasant surprise to see Jintian Xianyue at this time. People in the field couldn't help but look at Jintian Xianyue. There was no doubt that Jintian Xianyue was extremely beautiful. Her clothes were whiter than snow, elegant and refined, like a lonely and proud fairy, which made many people's eyes light up. Junior brother Lin Sun, it's a taboo for you to be distracted by a woman when you are about to prove your Tao. In the distance, Qi Lingzhen said with a smile. Not only him, but also Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin and Fu Chaoxing came. It's a taboo for you, senior brother. Lin Sun glanced at Qi Lingzhen and others, looking calm and composed. Child, just focus on proving your Tao. Don't be disturbed. At this time, Jintian Xianyue also realized that it was not the time to catch up with Lin Sun. She felt guilty and uneasy, blaming herself for being too impulsive before. Lin Sun smiled and said, I'll have a drink with you after the Tao proving. Suddenly, someone in the field sneered. It was very harsh and attracted many people's attention. They recognized the person who sneered. It was Xuan, the deacon of Yuan Su Pavilion. When Lin Sun went to Treasure Hall to receive his monthly salary for the first time, Xuan appeared and wanted to suppress Lin Sun as a deacon and take him to Yuan Su Pavilion for punishment, but was finally stopped by Jiang Yi. Who's laughing? Xian Juyin glared at him. Lin Sun is about to prove his Tao. Do you want to disturb his Tao heart? It's vicious and despicable. Go home and laugh again. Xuan's face turned livid with anger when he was scolded by Xian Juyin. There was an uproar in the field. At this time, a group of big shots from the 3 pavilions and 9 peaks gathered near the 9th peak, but Xian Juyin was unscrupulous and arrogant. He even scolded Xuan. Although my great-grandson's words are a little rude, they are reasonable. Xian Feiling said indifferently, Lin Sun's Tao proving is very important today. If anyone dares to say something or do something that is not conducive to Lin Sun's Tao proving, I will be the first one to punish him. His voice reverberated throughout the entire arena, shaking everyone's hearts. Great figures like Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, and Qi Wen looked gloomy. How could they not know that Xian Feiling was taking the opportunity to warn them? Brother Xian is right. Today, Lin Sun's Tao proving has attracted the attention of the whole sect. It's a grand event since ancient times. From now on, no one is allowed to make noise without authorization. If anyone disturbs Lin Sun's Tao proving and causes an accident to him, I won't spare him. Unexpectedly, the Fu Wenli spoke expressionlessly. No one could guess what he was thinking. That's good. Xian Feiling took a deep look at Fu Wenli, and the latter smiled back calmly. No one would be stupid enough to play some tricks when Lin Sun was practicing. To Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, and the others, they had already done what they needed to do. Now, all they needed was an outcome. Lin Sun, who had seen all this, didn't say anything. He looked at Qin Wuyu beside him and said softly, Peak Master, please take them away from here. Qin Wuyu was shocked. Knowing that Lin Sun was about to start the Tao proving, he didn't dare to neglect and immediately left the mountain with Mo Lanshan, Qin Ruoling, and others. Soon, Lin Sun was the only one left in the sea of clouds. At this moment, everyone's gazes were focused on his tall figure. Many people had mixed emotions, like Dong Wang Shaoan, Qi Qingshi, Mu Zunwu, and others. They entered Yuan sect with Lin Sun, but now Lin Sun had the opportunity to prove the Tao proving and attracted the attention of Yuan sect. But at this moment they could only be reduced to spectators. Many people were full of malicious expectations, such as Dong Wangqing, the elder of Yuan Qing Pavilion, Yun Tianming, the head of the second peak, Nan Bohong, the head of the third peak, Mu Yunjing, the head of the fourth peak, and so on. Over the past 7 months they had done a lot of things. Each of those things might not really shake Lin Sun's mind, but when these things accumulated, it was enough to make Lin Sun's mind turbulent. For example, last night, Lin Sun had lost control and revealed his killing intent and hatred, which was clearly seen by them. Everyone had their own thoughts, some malicious, some kind. No matter how they thought, everyone knew that Lin Sun was in a bad situation today. If he failed, it would be a heavy blow to Fengtsuan Mountain. It would also be a heavy blow to those in Yuan's sect who hoped to use Lin Sun to eradicate the chronic disease and cancer of the sect. For him, it was equivalent to destroying everything. And for those enemies, it was undoubtedly a great thing. Even if he succeeded, he would still face a killing tribulation that he couldn't escape. Moreover, he brought this tribulation upon himself. That was to fight with Qi Lingzhen, Zhong Liran, and the other 2 immortal disciples, and it would be a battle to the death. Who would think that a person who had just broken through the realm could be a match for those senior immortal disciples? In short, in many people's eyes, Lin Sun's situation was really not good. Even deputy pavilion masters like Fang Daoping, Du Guyong, and Xian Feiling were worried when they learned about the battle between Lin Sun and Qi Lingzhen. But things had already happened, and Lin Sun was about to prove his Tao. Even if they didn't approve of Lin Sun's way of doing things, they could only bear it in their hearts for the time being. The atmosphere was very quiet, and there was no sound in the surroundings. Lin Sun stood with his hands behind his back and looked up at the sky. His clothes fluttered in the wind, and he looked absolutely extraordinary. His mind was unprecedentedly calm and ethereal, like the moon in the blue sea, pure and untainted. "Let's start," he thought in his heart. A breath was suddenly released from his body, and it rose straight to the sky. It was like a bait. Silently, a wisp of frightening black emerged from the depths of the sky, and then it continued to expand, like ink soaking the blue sky. In just a few breaths, the originally clear sky seemed to have fallen into an eternal dark night. Near the 9th peak, whether it was the big shots or the descendants, their pupils all narrowed, and they all looked up at the sky. An indescribable breath of disaster was quietly spreading, as if the disaster that had been accumulated for thousands of years was about to come to the world today. Silence, darkness, and depression. Many people only felt a chill from the spine straight to the brain, and their bodies suddenly trembled, feeling the suffocating breath of destruction. Even those big shots couldn't help but be moved, their eyes flashed, and their qi began to run. The disaster hadn't really come, but that kind of breath was enough to make the world tremble and all living beings fear. To prove the immortality of Juetian Emperor, he had to go through a catastrophe that could be said to be the immortal Tao tribulation, and it was extremely terrifying. Since ancient times, all those who had proved their Tao and broken through the realm had been threatened by this tribulation, and only 1 out of 10 could really pass the tribulation safely. Sure enough, he has already grasped the opportunity to prove his Tao. Many descendants of the 9 peaks showed a look of envy and fear. Proving one's Tao to be immortal was also something they yearned for even in their dreams. However, that sliver of opportunity to prove one's Tao had forcefully trapped them for many years. But Lin Sun had only been in the sect for more than a year, and he was about to prove his Tao. In such a comparison, as people in the same realm, who could not be envious, who could not feel sad. The dark clouds in the sky were getting thicker and thicker, like a dark iron curtain that sealed off all light. The breath of destruction in the world was also getting more and more terrifying. The descendants of Juetian Emperor were all tensed up, and they had no choice but to stay far away from this area. Because if they tried to fight it head-on, it was very likely that when the tribulation truly came, they would suffer a backlash. However, as they retreated, a wisp of bitterness couldn't help but surge into their hearts. This was an eternal tribulation that belonged to Lin Sun, yet as spectators, they'd retreated at the first possible moment. Such a comparison allowed them to realize how obvious the gap between them was. The big shots couldn't stay calm, and all of them revealed looks of shock. They were all people who had gone through the immortal Tao tribulation, and a long time ago, they had experienced such a scene as well, and only then did they survive the tribulation. But at this moment, they were acutely aware that the tribulation they went through back then was different from the one Lin Sun was facing now. Even the breath was different. If the tribulations they went through were like rivers and lakes, then what Lin Sun was facing right now was very likely an ocean. The terrifying breath of the tribulation made them shudder with fear. This kid is worthy of being the descendant that the master of the core dimension has been waiting for. I'm afraid that his immortal path will face an unprecedented and peerless tribulation. Fang Daoping, Duguyong, Xian Failing, and the other old monsters looked at each other and saw the shock in each other's eyes. Then they looked at Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, and the others. All of them had gloomy expressions, and their brows were filled with coldness. As enemies of the core dimension, how could they not know that Lin Sun carried the great hopes of the master of the core dimension? How could they not know that Lin Sun was about to step on the immortal path that only existed in legends? If it wasn't for that, why would they want to kill Lin Sun before he reached the immortal realm all these years? Now that Lin Sun was about to go through the tribulation, and they felt the breath of the tribulation that was different from the world, they felt quite uncomfortable. Their killing intent, hatred, and anger interweaved and surged. If it weren't for the Yuan sect, they would have killed Lin Sun long ago. They would not give him any chance to prove the immortal path. No one has ever set foot on this path. You, the remnant of the core dimension, are destined to be no exception. Fu Wenli snorted coldly in his heart. At this moment, under the gaze of tens of thousands of people, before the tribulation came, Lin Sun's figure rose into the sky and came under the thick ink-like tribulation clouds. His thick black hair fluttered in the wind, and his handsome face was calm. His eyes were calm, and only his sleeves fluttered in the wind, making him look like an elegant immortal. Everyone held their breath, and their eyes did not blink, lest they miss a single detail. Lin Sun casually raised his right hand, as if he was holding up the sky. He crooked his finger and said softly, "Tribulation, come." Chapter 28:30. Tribulation came. 2 words floated in the air. Then, under the shocked gazes of the crowd, there was a sudden thunder in the depths of the clouds. Boom! The thunder was like the loud sound of the beginning of chaos, smashing into the ears of the people present, making their hearts tremble fiercely and their faces change. Then, countless dazzling lightning intertwined in the depths of the clouds like a spider's web and turned into a black spear of judgment. Everyone felt a stabbing pain, and their minds were shaken. The tribulation thunder was indeed like the spear of judgment, the punishment from heaven, representing the supreme will of the Great Way, which was beyond people's imagination. Those big shots couldn't help but gasp. They had never encountered such a strange phenomenon when they passed the tribulations in the past. Boom! In the depths of the clouds, the spear of judgment suddenly disappeared. The next moment, Lin Sun's tall figure under the sky was pierced by the black spear and exploded with a loud bang. Blood rained down. This sudden bloody scene shocked many people in the field, and made them cry out in horror. Ah! Is he dead? The tribulation had just begun, but the first blow killed Lin Sun in the air and smashed his body, which was completely beyond people's expectation and imagination. Those great figures could still be considered to be calm, but when they saw this bloody scene, their hearts trembled. The power of this judgment spear was just too tyrannical. In the void, after Lin Sun's body was smashed, he was bombarded by the terrible tribulation thunder, as if he had completely died. Did he really die like this? Qi Lingjun and others' eyes lit up, and unspeakable shock and joy surged in their hearts. The others present were also shocked and doubtful. While Jin Tian and Xian Yue were nervous at this moment, their pretty faces were pale, and they couldn't believe their eyes. Xian Juyin was about to say something, but was stopped by Xian Feiling. It's just scattered. Keep watching. Xian Juyin suppressed his inner doubts and horror and stared carefully. Sure enough, it didn't take long for Lin Sun to find that under the tribulation cloud, beads of blood emerged out of nothing, and then combined and merged together. Almost in the blink of an eye, Lin Sun's figure was reconstructed. He was still standing there with a calm look. Seeing this scene, all the people present almost burst into an uproar. What was going on? This had completely exceeded the understanding of most people, and it seemed as if Lin Sun had been reborn after death and realized rebirth between life and death. It was too unbelievable. On the other hand, Qi Lingzhen and the others who couldn't conceal the joy in their hearts couldn't help but be stunned, and they looked as if they'd seen a ghost. Back then, they had also verified the Tao of immortality, but they had never experienced such a mystical thing. Making something out of nothing. Light surged in Duguyong's eyes as surprise filled his face. It really is. I never would have guessed that Patriarch Zhu Shui would be able to gain enlightenment of such a level. Fang Daoping murmured. Great Ancestor, what is creating something out of nothing? Xian Juyin could not help but ask. It's a state where creation and destruction coexist. It's a state where life and death revolve between existence and non-existence. This state is related to one's Tao heart. Only by comprehending this state will one be able to achieve a true transformation in the transcendent state. Xian Feiling quickly transmitted his voice. You can think of it as a kind of mental strength. Those who have the universe in their hearts can control the universe. If their hearts are detached, they can achieve immortality and freedom. His voice was full of emotion and shock. Creating something out of nothing was the mental strength that immortals of the transcendent realm diligently pursued. Only by seeing through this state could one realize the real transcendent. Xian Feiling was also a figure of the transcendent realm. How could he not know the mystery of this state? But he didn't expect that such a state would appear in Lin Sun, a Patriarch Zhu Shui, which was undoubtedly incredible. Why is it that I can understand it, but I can't figure out the mysteries behind it? Xian Juyin was puzzled. If you could comprehend it, you could have sat down and discussed with me. Xian Feiling said angrily. So, Lin Sun can do it? Xian Juyin was shocked. He hasn't really mastered the power of creating something out of nothing, but he has already comprehended some of the mysteries of this state. It's really amazing. Xian Feiling sighed. He didn't know that Lin Sun had already seen through this state when he passed through the 9 levels of Green Cloud Path in the ancient Desolation Realm, which surprised Xi and made him lose his composure. Later, when the Golden Cicada youth learned about this, he was also amazed. At the same time, Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, and the other big shots were also surprised. Creating something out of nothing? Just like Xian Feiling and the others, they were shocked at this moment and couldn't stay calm. Because this state belonged to the third realm of the immortal realm, the transcendent realm, but now it appeared on Lin Sun. It was hard not to be surprised. However, for most of the descendants present, they were confused because they didn't understand the meaning of creating something out of nothing. This was normal. But it was very unusual for Lin Sun. This was also the reason why those big shots were shocked. Boom! Under the sky, the spear of judgment appeared again, ignoring the shackles of space, and instantly attacked Lin Sun with a terrifying aura. But this time, Lin Sun was prepared and waved his fist to kill. Bang! The two clashed. In a flash, Lin Sun's body was penetrated and exploded again. The bloody scene made people shudder. But with the first experience, they didn't lose their composure like before. Sure enough, Lin Sun's figure appeared again and collided with the spear of judgment. His body was like a great abyss, and he released all his power. The tyrannical power made all the Juexin great ancestors stunned. They had seen how Lin Sun defeated Li Zhongyuan, and how he defeated Shen Zidao. They thought that Lin Sun was already at the peak of his power. But now, when they saw the power Lin Sun released during the tribulation, they realized that they didn't know how strong Lin Sun was before. That kind of power caused them to feel a sense of despair, as if they were too far behind to catch up. Even some of the big shots at the immortal realm were shocked, because this was the first time they saw Lin Sun release his power without reservation. Fu Wenli and the other big shots from the enemy forces couldn't help but feel a chill. Only now did they realize why Lin Sun was regarded as the heir that the master of the square inch had been waiting for ages. That kind of power was too terrifying. He had the power of a supreme master above the same realm. But what made them feel a little relieved was that this tribulation was also incomparably terrifying, beyond their imagination. This was just the beginning, and Lin Sun was constantly being smashed by the spear of judgment. How could he survive this tribulation? It was wishful thinking to set foot on the immortal way. While they were thinking, bang! Under the sky, Lin Sun's figure was smashed again, and blood splashed everywhere. This was the fourth time he was smashed. Those scenes that seemed like death over and over again caused the hearts of many to rise to their throats, and they were extremely nervous. But unexpectedly, every time Lin Sun was smashed, his aura grew stronger, as if he was undergoing nirvana and transformation in the process of destruction and rebirth. When he was smashed for the 9th time, Lin Sun already had the power to fight against the spear of judgment. Everyone was dumbfounded by what they saw. It was as if Lin Sun was immortal, and every time he was destroyed, he would grow stronger. This completely subverted their imagination. Until the 13th time. Boom! This time, Lin Sun forcefully smashed the spear of judgment. Black lightning rained down from the sky, and it made his tall figure look like a demon. Great! Xian Juyin shouted excitedly, but he was slapped on the back of his head by Xian Feiling. Don't make a sound! Although he grimaced in pain, Xian Juyin was beaming with joy. At this moment, there were many people who were as excited as him. Of course, to those enemies, this naturally disappointed them. All of their faces were gloomy as if they wanted to eat a dead fly. Rumble! In the sky, the tribulation clouds were heavy, and the sound of thunder resounded throughout the world. In the depths of the tribulation clouds, the destructive aura of the tribulation surged, and it released dazzling lightning arcs. Lin Sun, who stood under the tribulation, looked indifferent as before, but his aura was much stronger than before. This was a transformation obtained during the tribulation, and at this moment, he finally understood the meaning of the Nirvana order. If he didn't have the power of Nirvana, then not to mention him, even an immortal would be powerless to resist such a terrifying tribulation, because this tribulation could be said to be unprecedented. The power of this tribulation was not something that Emperor Ju Sun could resist. The path of the immortal sovereign, Nirvana in the heavens. Lin Sun murmured in his heart. His understanding of the Tao hymn left behind by his master, the master of the heart core, had deepened. Boom! Suddenly, soul-stirring thunder resounded from the depths of the tribulation clouds. It was like the god of thunder was beating a war drum, and it shook the heavens and the earth. Everyone present felt their hearts palpitate, and their bodies stiffened. Many of the heirs couldn't help but subconsciously retreat even further. Even the great figures felt their hair stand on end. The aura of this tribulation was even more horrifying than some of the tribulations they'd encountered in the sempiternal realm. They couldn't imagine that this was an immortal tribulation that targeted Emperor Ju Sun. A Tao platform? What kind of tribulation is this? My God! Cries of alarm rang out. Many people couldn't help themselves. The lightning tribulation that had just appeared was simply too strange and terrifying. Countless bolts of purple lightning formed an ancient Tao platform. The Tao platform was branded with clear and obscure Tao patterns. It gave off a heavy, ancient, and primitive aura. Everyone who saw it felt suffocated, as if their minds were being suppressed. This was because the aura of the purple lightning Tao platform seemed to contain a forbidden power. Boom! Under countless shocked gazes, the purple Tao platform descended. In a flash, Lin Sun's figure was crushed and obliterated. The Tao platform rumbled, as if it wanted to erase Lin Sun's essence, energy, and spirit. This domineering and merciless scene caused Fang Daoping, Xian Feiling, and the others' eyelids to twitch. Based on their knowledge, they had never seen or heard of such a strange and forbidden lightning tribulation in the world. This completely shattered their understanding. As for Fu Wenli and the others who hated Lin Sun, they couldn't help but feel a sense of anticipation. Would Lin Sun be able to come back from the dead? P.S. Here are 2 chapters first. There will be 2 more chapters before 7 p.m. On the last day of the month. If you have a monthly ticket, please smash it. Once it expires, it becomes invalid. Chapter 2831. Boom. Near the 9th peak, the obscure power of order emerged to resist the power of the terrible thunder retribution. Otherwise, the mountains and rivers would be smashed into powder. The platform formed by the purple thunder was like an unshakable mountain, shining in the void, and the terrible breath of calamity rumbled and spread. This was a scene that was enough to make any Zhu Xian ancestor desperate. Who could resist such a great calamity? But soon, people found that near the purple platform, strands of blood intertwined and condensed, and it didn't take long for Lin Sun's figure to be outlined. He's not dead yet? Qi Lingzhen almost couldn't control himself and shouted. Looking at the others, their eyes were wide open and full of disbelief. But in just a moment, Lin Sun's figure was obliterated again, as if he had entered a reincarnation of destruction and rebirth, just like when he fought against the Spear of Judgment. Every time, people thought he had died, but every time he came back to life like a miracle. This caused the expressions of the great figures in Fu Wenli to fluctuate indeterminately. However, as outsiders, although they could see it clearly, they couldn't understand Lin Sun's feeling when he was going through the thunder retribution. Being killed once was like suffering a torture. His body was obliterated, and he was struggling in the face of death. If it was someone with a slightly weaker state of mind, his state of mind would have collapsed after being tortured by the bombardment again and again. Lin Sun himself didn't feel good either. But his state of mind and will had never been shaken. He had waited for too long, and he only needed this opportunity to prove his Tao. No matter how terrible and abnormal this tribulation was, it couldn't make him flinch at all. It was true that every time he was obliterated, it was like experiencing the cruelest torture in the world. But after every nirvana, Lin Sun's cultivation barrier was broken a little, and he got an invisible transformation. If the Zhu Xian ancestor realm was like a pool full of water, then the tribulation at the moment was like a giant hammer, shaking and shattering the barrier of the pool. This was breaking the realm. Only by breaking the barrier of one's own cultivation could one step on a higher road. As time went by, Lin Sun didn't know how many times he was obliterated by the purple platform. He suddenly flashed and sat cross-legged on the purple platform. As if he was meditating, a terrible devouring aura emerged from his body, turning into an unfathomable abyss, refining the purple platform. Boom! The energies of the two of them carried out an unprecedentedly intense battle, causing the heavens and the earth to be thrown into disorder. Violent energies raged and swept out in all directions. However, no matter how the purple platform struggled, Lin Sun remained motionless like a rock. As it continued to resist, the purple Tao platform began to crumble inch by inch, and the terrifying aura of calamity that filled it was slowly being obliterated. Everyone was shocked and silent. Lin Sun's performance at the moment was like a god in their eyes, disdainful, powerful, unshakable, and immortal. Why is it like this? Could it be that his state of mind has not been affected? The expressions of Qi Lingzhen and the others changed. They were indescribably angry and uncomfortable. Lin Sun's performance was too amazing. He was defeated again and again, stood up again, and now he was going to refine the great punishment to nourish himself. Who could accept this? More people were shocked by Lin Sun. If they were in Lin Sun's shoes, who could go through all kinds of trials and tribulations like Lin Sun? Crack! In the end, the purple Tao platform cracked and then burst into pieces. The thunder tribulation light rain it turned into was completely devoured by Lin Sun. It was visible to the naked eye that Lin Sun's aura was rising crazily, and there were traces of the aura of the immortal realm vaguely rising. At this moment, Fu Wenli and the others could not stay calm at all. They were shocked and angry. Could it be that Lin Sun's state of mind had not been affected at all? This caught them off guard. Seeing Lin Sun become braver and stronger in the great punishment, they had the impulse to stop him several times. But in the end, they restrained themselves. This was the Yuan sect, after all, and the rules could not be trampled. At this time, Xian Feiling, De Guyong, and the other big shots were relieved. The first great punishment was like the spear of judgment. Although it was terrifying, Lin Sun still managed to resolve it. The second great punishment was like the Thunder Tao platform, which was even more tyrannical than the spear of judgment. It made them tremble with fear, but it still did not defeat Lin Sun. All of this was like a miracle, which boosted the confidence of the spectators. However, at this moment, chaotic divine thunder suddenly appeared in the depths of the tribulation cloud. It was obscure and inexplicable, rolling and surging. At that moment, everyone present, regardless of their cultivation, felt their state of mind trembling uncontrollably. It was as if a great terror had enveloped them and was about to invade their state of mind. Tut! Suddenly, Xian Feiling's voice resounded through the whole area. All disciples, seal your six senses. Don't try to sense it anymore. If you do, your state of mind will suffer a great punishment. Countless people's expressions changed, and they subconsciously sealed their divine senses and senses. But in this way, they could see the power contained in the heavenly punishment again. Only those bigwigs could resist all of this, but their expressions had turned grave. In the depths of the sky, the bolts of lightning that seemed like chaos converged together to form countless inconceivable phenomena. There were scenes of the primordial times when the heavens and the earth were split apart, scenes of the changing of the world, scenes of the universe being destroyed, scenes of all living beings in the world floating between life and death, scenes of a myriad of Daos collapsing, and scenes of the end of the world being obliterated. Those scenes made the big shots' hair stand on end, and their expressions suddenly changed. What kind of heavenly punishment was this? At this time, Lin Sun's expression was as calm as before, waiting quietly. He had a hunch that this would be the last heavenly punishment, and also the most horrible and terrible one. If he could pass it, he could enter the immortal realm and live as long as the sky. If he couldn't pass it, he would die, and his soul would be destroyed. Tao begets one, one begets two begets three, and three begets all things. This heavenly punishment has three levels, which represent the past, the present, and the future. The mystery hidden in it is much more horrible than those previous heavenly punishment. Maybe only by breaking through all of this can I truly obtain the power of the Immortal Supreme, Lin Sun pondered, and his state of mind became more and more ethereal and calm. Above the sky, countless strange visions gathered in the chaotic thunder tribulation, and finally condensed into a decree, spreading in the depths of the tribulation cloud. It shone brightly, and there were countless wonderful and indescribable words of the Great Way vaguely appearing on it. But if you looked carefully, you couldn't see anything clearly. Those immortals in the transcendent realm couldn't help but be stunned by this mysterious heavenly punishment decree. No matter how they racked their brains, they were unable to imagine how an immortal tribulation could transform into a decree. They used all their strength to sense it and tried to figure out the words of the Great Way in the decree, but they were actually unable to see through it in the end. It seemed like the legendary heavenly book that carried the will of the heavens, and it was indescribable, and unfathomable. It was too unbelievable. Even those big shots that were hostile to Lin Sun were stunned on the spot, and they were shocked by this unprecedented heavenly punishment lightning. A decree. Is this the supreme energy that represents the great punishment? At this moment, Lin Sun felt a chill run down his spine as he felt a lethal threat. He didn't hesitate to withdraw the abyssal sword cauldron that had always been hidden in his palm, and it floated above him while emanating a myriad of strands of light. Within the abyssal sword cauldron, the order of nirvana actually fluctuated, and it seemed as if it was stimulated by some sort of force. Bang! In the depths of the tribulation cloud, countless indescribable Tao markings suddenly surged out from the chaotic decree. As soon as they appeared, they transformed into numerous clear and muddy interweaved, obscure and illusory petals that sprinkled down. The spectators didn't feel that it was very terrifying, but when the numerous petals descended, they were utterly unable to resist, and they stuck onto Lin Sun's body. It was instantly like the most intense tribulation flames in the world that incinerated Lin Sun's body and instantly transformed him into ash. The hearts of everyone constricted while they felt suffocated. How terrifying! When the petals touched the abyssal sword cauldron, the latter droned violently while its surface was corroded, and large pieces peeled off and dispersed. It seemed like it was on the verge of being unable to endure it. A lotus flower pattern suddenly floated up into appearance from within the abyssal sword cauldron, and it emanated a mysterious energy that confined the numerous petals. But there were truly too many petals. The clear and muddy circulation was obscure and illusory, and it quickly enveloped the severely damaged abyssal sword cauldron and the rebirth order. These scenes exceeded the imagination of everyone present here. They didn't know what such a shocking event meant, but they could be sure that Lin Sun was encountering the most terrifying calamity. After a long time, his figure gradually condensed into appearance, yet it hadn't completely taken form before it was incinerated and dispersed by the petals. This scene caused the hearts of Xian Feiling and the others to go cold. Such a strange and forbidden calamity caused even seniors like them to feel horrified. They hadn't felt such a feeling for a long time. On the other hand, although Fu Wenli and the others were also frightened by this scene, they felt unprecedented excitement and joy in their hearts. How could Lin Sun survive such a great calamity? And the painstaking efforts of the owner of the square inch were destined to be destroyed. At this time, even the descendants of the 3 pavilions and 9 peaks noticed that Lin Sun was in a precarious situation, unlike before. Because in the following time, whenever his figure was about to condense, it would be incinerated by the petals falling from the decree of chaos, and he didn't even have the chance to struggle. In the end, the time it took for his figure to condense became longer and longer. Alas, it's all in vain, Qi Lingzhen said. It seemed that he was feeling sorry for Lin Sun, but in fact, he felt extremely comfortable. If you don't want to die, shut up. In the distance, Xian Feiling's face was terrifyingly cold. His words made Qi Lingzhen's face turn pale, and he was extremely embarrassed. Brother Xian, don't argue with a junior. Everyone can see that Lin Sun is about to fail the tribulation. Even if we don't want to see such a result, it's a fact. What can we do? Qi Xiaoyun said coldly. He was also very happy in his heart, so he deliberately provoked Xian Feiling with word. It's a pity that Lin Sun is so brilliant. I never thought that he would die like this. Fu Wenli next to him also sighed. When this calamity is over, let's go and see if we can find some ashes and relic. After all, he is the successor of our Yuan sect. We must bury him well. Qi Wen let out a long sigh. At this moment, the big shots of the enemy forces all spoke out. Obviously, they wanted to make trouble for Xian Feiling and the others. Of course, they also wanted to express their inner joy and happiness. In the end, Lin Sun would die after all. Their efforts during this period of time were not in vain. Chapter 28-32. Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, and other bigwigs spoke one after another. The meaning of their words was undoubtedly telling everyone that Lin Sun would definitely die during the heavenly tribulation. This made everyone present unable to calm down. How could this be? Many people who were looking forward to witnessing Lin soon attaining immortality couldn't help but feel disappointed. I knew it would be like this. There were also many people who sneered in their hearts. Lin Sun's performance during the heavenly tribulation had shocked them repeatedly. How could they not know that if Lin Sun succeeded in attaining immortality, he was destined to burst out with unparalleled brilliance? Fortunately, all of this would not happen. At this moment, even Qin Wuyu, Xiao Wenyuan, Li Zhen, and the others were somewhat uncertain and bewildered. The power of the catastrophe decree was simply abnormal to the point of being unsolvable. It horrified them, and they couldn't imagine how Lin Sun would resolve this calamity. Jin Tian Xuanyue's pretty face was pale, and her body was cold. She tightly pursed her pink and bloodless lips, and she was extremely nervous. Xian Jiuyin intended to comfort her, but he couldn't say a word, because he was also shocked by this terrifying heavenly tribulation, and his heart felt as if it was being clenched by a huge hand. Just when everyone's hearts were in turmoil, no one noticed that a drop of bright red blood condensed in the abyssal sword cauldron that was covered by countless catastrophe petals. Bathed in the obscure power of the Nirvana order, it trembled violently as if it was boiling. Crack! In an extremely subtle sound of explosion, the drop of blood shattered and turned into countless threads that interweaved with the power of the Nirvana order, gradually outlining an extremely vague and illusory figure. It was Lin Sun. However, at this moment, the abyssal sword cauldron was covered by layers of catastrophe petals, and it was impossible for the outside world to see the wonderful scene inside the sword cauldron. Lin Sun sat cross-legged, and his illusory figure was extremely unstable, as if it would collapse like a bubble at any time. The dense power of the Nirvana order absorbed and refined the petals imprisoned near the abyssal sword cauldron piece by piece, condensing them into a kind of pure and abundant vitality, which was greedily absorbed by Lin Sun's figure. These catastrophe petals came from the supreme decree in the depths of the heavenly tribulation cloud. They were condensed from indescribable taboo characters, and contained a terrifying power of catastrophe. To put it simply, these tribulation flower petals were tribulation lightning to begin with, representing the will of the heavens. Only, the power was incomparably terrifying like a taboo. But at this time, as the Nirvana order refined these tribulations, it transformed into a kind of vitality to realize the ultimate transformation, and it helped Lin Sun rebuild his Taoist body and realize the ultimate transformation on the path of cultivation. Little by little, Lin Sun's illusory figure solidified little by little, as if it was poured by the supreme power of the Great Way, and then hammered thousands of times, emitting incomparable surging power. In the end, Lin Sun's whole body recovered to its original state. His black hair fluttered in the wind, and his body seemed to be made of divine jade, shining with inexplicable Taoist light. He breathed through his nose and mouth, his expression as calm as before. His figure floated within the abyssal sword cauldron, and his aura rose at an unbelievable speed. Suddenly, he opened his eyes and stretched out his hand to grab a handful of dazzling lightning. This was the power of the catastrophe petal that had been refined by the Nirvana order, and now he was using it to temper himself. From this moment on, Lin Sun's body, heart, soul, mind, and cultivation all seemed to achieve a qualitative transformation. He broke the shackles, broke the barriers, and set foot on an incredible realm. The most incredible thing was that, with the dense Nirvana order, he began to really touch and feel the mystery of the Nirvana order, and thus had an epiphany, subconsciously began to condense his own great way. The abyssal sword cauldron roared, the Nirvana order shone, and the catastrophe petal was refined one by one, while Lin Sun's aura became stronger and more terrifying. This was an unprecedented Nirvana. It was also the most incredible transformation that Lin Sun had experienced since he started his cultivation. Although all this couldn't be seen by the outside world, as time went by, people noticed that something was wrong. Why hasn't this tribulation ended yet? A big shot was surprised. Did this mean that Lin Sun hadn't really failed yet? It seems that it's not the time to decide the winner. Xian Failing murmured, his eyes as bright as torches. So, won't those who want to bury Lin Sun in the coffin be disappointed? Du Guyong said indifferently. Probably so. Fang Daoping's expression was calm. This was a counterattack, but Fu Wenli and the others couldn't care less about this. They looked at the tribulation that had been going on for a long time, their eyes filled with disbelief. He didn't die? Everyone in the field was also stunned. The catastrophe thunder decree was so terrifying, if it was any other Ju Xia emperor, they would have been killed countless times. Who could believe that Lin Sun hadn't really suffered? Boom! Right at this moment, in the depths of the tribulation cloud, the obscure and difficult to understand decree emanated an enormous bang that shook the heavens, and then the tribulation lightning in the surroundings converged madly towards the decree like a myriad of streams returning to the source. All of a sudden, the decree shone brightly, reflecting the tribulation light of the end of the world. The terrifying aura made all the immortal figures present pale, as if their minds had been hit hard, and they felt great pressure and fear. Without a doubt, this would be the strongest blow of this tribulation. Under countless shocked gazes, the decree started burning, and then it transformed into a gray and hazy light of tribulation that swiftly struck down from the depths of the sky. Screams and cries rang out. The descendants' eyes stung, their minds felt like they were being torn apart, and they felt unprecedented fear. The great figures felt their scalps go numb, their bodies stiff, shocked by this tribulation light that seemed like it had come from the end of the world. It was too terrifying and couldn't be described with words. It was like a taboo that couldn't be described. If they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they would have suspected that this was a great tribulation for them, and not something an Emperor Ju Xia emperor could face. In the blink of an eye, the tribulation light descended, ignoring the restraints of time and space. Like the sharpest blade in the world, it struck the abyssal sword cauldron that was covered by the tribulation petals. Boom! Heaven and earth collapsed and exploded, shredding like paper. The earth quaked, as if the end of the world had arrived on the 9th peak. The terrifying tribulation turbulence flew everywhere, shocking the great figures to the point that they had no choice but to retreat, fearing that they would be contaminated by that power. Right at this moment, they saw a scene that they couldn't forget for their entire lifetimes. Amidst the dazzling and terrifying tribulation light, a tall figure appeared. The sword cauldron floated above his head, and he seemed as if he'd walked out from an epic, while a myriad of strands of light fluttered about his entire body. His body was like an abyss that swallowed the sky, and he slowly swallowed, crushed, and obliterated the tribulation light that slashed down towards him. After that, his imposing aura rose while his entire body glowed dazzlingly. He suddenly stretched out his hand, and his fingers formed a sword that slashed towards the sky. Bang! It was like a volcano that had been suppressed since the beginning of time had erupted from this sword strike. A peerlessly sharp glow carried along a sword howl that resounded through the world as it charged into the depths of the sky. After that, the sky was like a painting that was slashed open from the middle, and the black-colored tribulation clouds that covered it dispersed and vanished like bubbles that covered the sky. This sword strike swept through the tribulation clouds that covered the sky. The surroundings were deathly silent, perfectly silent. The great figures couldn't help but stare with their eyes wide open while they revealed dazed expressions, and they were unable to recover from their shock for a long time. That tribulation light was a taboo, yet it was forcefully swallowed and refined by Lin Sun's own cultivation, and then he slashed through the sky and destroyed the tribulation clouds. That scene was simply breathtaking. Those successors were all dumbfounded, and their minds went blank. Previously, their divine senses were blocked and they couldn't see anything. When their vision recovered, they saw the tribulation clouds above the sky being split into two and exploding with a bang, which completely shocked them. The scene at that time. It should be the divine immortals who were drunk and crushed the tribulation clouds. The sky recovered its clarity, and it was clear and boundless. The terrifying aura of calamity had vanished completely, and it seemed as if everything that occurred earlier was an unreal dream. However, the fear, trembling, and shock in people's hearts couldn't be erased. He made it. Qi Lingzhen, Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaoxing were at a loss, and a strong sense of unwillingness surged in their hearts. Until now, they finally dared to confirm that Lin Sun was not only alive, but had also broken through the tribulation in one fell swoop. The scene that they thought Lin Sun would definitely die before was naturally impossible to happen again. He really made it. Many people seemed to wake up from a dream, and their faces were filled with unconcealable excitement and joy. The originally silent atmosphere was also drowned by noisy exclamations. The previous scenes of Lin Sun's tribulation made them feel hopeless and helpless, because the tribulation had completely exceeded their imagination and cognition, and there was no hope of success. But in the end, Lin Sun miraculously survived and attained immortality on the 9th peak. It was really like an impossible event had happened. Dong Wang Shaoan, Qi Qingshi, and Mu Zunwu seemed as if they were struck by lightning, and their eyes were completely gloomy. This scene had determined that from today onwards, they and Lin Sun were people from two different worlds, and they were no longer peers. They were far behind him. He made it. Young master made it, Jin Tian Xianyue murmured, and her delicate body trembled slightly with excitement. The worry, depression, and panic in her heart were greatly comforted and soothed at this moment. Yes, he made it. He never lets us down. Xian Juyin smiled brightly, but his tightly clenched fists showed that he was even more excited than he looked. Ha 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 ha. Such a magnificent feat is unparalleled since ancient times. At this moment, even an old antique like Xian Feiling was so excited that he laughed and marveled. At least in the history of the eternal true world, this is the first time I've seen such an incredible Tao tribulation. It's enough to shock the ages. Duguyong also could not help but exclaim in admiration. Indeed. Fang Daoping nodded seriously, and his eyes were full of emotion. A great tribulation had stirred the hearts of these old antiques, and they could not calm down. This in itself was enough to prove how unprecedented Lin Sun's tribulation was. And big shots like Qin Wuyu, Mo Lanshan, Xiao Wenyuan, Li Zhen, and other big shots could not hide the shock and joy in their hearts at this moment. Lin Sun's tribulation this time was too incredible, and it was too difficult. Before this, they were all nervous and had no idea how many times they had been nervous. Looking at Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Tang Qiu, and other big shots, their expressions were all stiff, gloomy, and ugly. P.S. 3rd and 4th chapters are here. Goldfish eat first, and try to send 2 chapters before 10:30 p.m. Chapter 28:33. Lin Sun had passed the tribulation successfully. This fact was like an invisible slap on the faces of Fu Wenli and the others, causing them to feel a burning pain. Before this, they were still regretting and wanted to collect Lin Sun's ashes and bury him properly. Their words seemed to imply that Lin Sun would definitely die this time. But at this moment, these words were like a slap on their faces. It was so painful that they couldn't look good. It could be said that Lin Sun's success in passing the tribulation meant that all their previous plans and efforts were in vain. They had lost everything. For their enemies, the most intolerable thing was that Lin Sun, the successor of the Master of the Square Inch, had broken through to the immortal realm. For this reason, they had painstakingly. Recently, they had frequently attacked everyone related to Lin Sun in the Yuan sect. Outside the Yuan sect, they had also taken action against the successors of the Square Inch and the Luo family. They had even sent forces to the Starry Sky Ancient Path to capture Lin Sun's relatives and friends. All these plans were to shake Lin Sun's state of mind and make him fail in passing the tribulation. But now, all these plans had become empty talk. Indescribable frustration and unwillingness were fermenting in the hearts of these big shots, making their faces more and more gloomy and unsightly. Many people in the field were cheering excitedly for Lin Sun. This made the silent Fu Wenli and the others seem out of place. Of course, it also attracted the attention of Xian Failing and other big shot. Looking at the unlucky faces of Fu Wenli and the others, they couldn't help but smile. The taste of failure was, after all, not so good under the sky. Lin Sun stood alone. His figure was tall and straight, and his whole body was surrounded by crystal-clear immortal aura. The aura turned into an immortal divine halo, bright and spirited, and protected his whole body. His clothes were fluttering in the wind, making him look like an otherworldly immortal. At this moment, he was no longer the Ju Xian Emperor, but an immortal existence with the cultivation of the heavenly longevity realm. Living as long as the sky, immortal and eternal, he was calmly sensing his own qi. Overcoming the tribulation this time had given him an unprecedented transformation. The completely new attainments in the Tao, laws, and energy filled his entire body, and it caused satisfaction to arise involuntarily in his heart. Junior brother Lin Sun, I congratulate you for successfully proving the Tao and successfully reaching the immortal level. However, do you remember what you said last night? Suddenly, Qi Lingzhen's deep voice resounded throughout the surroundings. Xian Failing and the other big shots, who were originally smiling, suddenly narrowed their eyes and secretly cursed. On the other hand, the spirits of Fu Wenli and the others who were feeling vexed and furious were refreshed, and they seemed as if they'd seen the sun and suddenly recalled something. A challenge. Right now, Lin Sun had just broken the Kulpa and entered the heavenly longevity realm from Great Emperor Ju Xian. It was a brand new realm, a brand new power. He couldn't unleash the true power of the immortal realm in a short time. At such a time, Qi Lingzhen, who had been in the heavenly longevity realm for many years, would be able to easily kill him. The best part was that Lin Sun's opponents were not only Qi Lingzhen, but also Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin and Fu Chaosheng. How could the four giants of the younger generation who had proven their Tao for many years not be able to kill a newbie who had just broken through? When they thought up to here, the gloominess in the hearts of Fu Wenli and the others was completely swept away, and their spirits were refreshed while their eyes lit up. Of course I remember. Under the sky, Lin Sun stood with his hands clasped behind his back, glanced at Qi Lingzhen and the others, and said, "Even if you forget it, I won't. Lin Sun, you've just proved your Tao. Why are you in such a hurry to fight with others?" In the distance, Xian Failing frowned and reminded him that there was still a long way to go. Fang Daoping, Du Guyong and others also looked at Lin Sun. Their meaning was obvious. They didn't want to let Lin Sun get ahead of himself for the time being. Everyone, if I remember correctly, it was Lin Sun who took the initiative to challenge us last night. It was not Qi Lingzhen and other disciples who deliberately chose to make things difficult for Lin Sun at this time. Fu Wenli said with a fake smile, "Qi Lingzhen and other disciples asked me and Qi Xiaoyun about this matter yesterday. We didn't want to see our fellow disciples kill each other. But according to Qi Lingzhen, Lin Sun insisted on it. We had no choice but to agree." Qi Xiaoyun beside him said in a deep voice, "Brother Fu is right. This is a fight to the death." Xian Failing said coldly, "It's too hasty for you to make such a decision. I won't agree to it." To fight to the death in the arena of heaven's judgment, the three deputy heads of Yuankong Pavilion had to agree unanimously. That was to say, as long as one of them disagreed, such an appointment couldn't be carried out. After all, they were all descendants of Yuan sect. A fight to the death was too serious. No one wanted to see such a thing happen under unusual circumstances. The faces of Fu Wenli and other big shots became gloomy. "Junior brother, you promised me last night that you would let Xian Failing agree to this appointment, but now Qi Lingzhen sighed, and his words were full of provocation. Xian Failing glared at him and was about to speak, but Lin Sun said first, "Senior, I hope you can help me fight with my senior brothers." Lin Sun's calm voice resounded through the audience and caused an uproar. In people's expectation, Lin Sun didn't need to fight to the death, since he had just broken through the realm. With the foundation and strength he showed when he proved his Tao and the immortal path he embarked on, he was destined to shine in the future. But who would have thought that Lin Sun insisted on fighting at this time? Xian Feiling was a little angry. How could this boy be so stupid? Brother Lin, this is not the time to joke. Don't be like this. Even if you don't accept the challenge, who in Yuan sect will dare to laugh at you? Xian Juyin also tried to persuade Lin Sun. Jintian Xianyue uncharacteristically didn't dissuade him. A long time ago, she had followed Lin Sun and served him. She had witnessed how Lin Sun reversed the situation in a disadvantageous situation again and again. In her heart, she had a kind of blind confidence in Lin Sun. Just like this time, who could believe that Lin Sun could survive such a terrible tribulation? Now that Lin Sun dared to be so insistent, Jintian Xianyue was sure that her young master must be confident. However, she was just one person after all. Big shots like Du Guyong, Fang Daoping and Qin Wuyu couldn't understand why Lin Sun was so insistent. "What if I don't agree?" Xian Feiling said with a gloomy face. Lin Sun was silent for a moment and was about to speak. In the void, a snow-white jade slip suddenly swept out and came to Xian Feiling. Xian Feiling was startled and took the jade slip and opened it. Suddenly, Xian Feiling raised his eyebrows and his expression changed. Everyone noticed this scene, and they couldn't help but be surprised and bewildered. And those big shots present were all awestruck. They recognized that the breath on the snow-white jade slip was from Yuan Kong Pavilion Master. What was Yuan Kong Pavilion Master going to do? All eyes were on Xian Feiling. After a while, Xian Feiling put away the jade slip, took a deep breath and said, "Well, since you insist, I won't refuse any more." The whole audience was shocked. A jade slip actually changed the attitude of Deputy Pavilion Master Xian Feiling. And those big shots also realized that it was Yuan Kong Pavilion Master who changed Xian Feiling's attitude. However, no one knew whether he was doing this to help Lin Sun or Fu Wenli. But no matter what, at this moment, Fu Wenli and others couldn't help laughing. They were happy and expectant, as if they could see the scene of Lin Sun being killed. Lin Sun also breathed a sigh of relief. To be honest, if Xian Feiling insisted on not agreeing to this battle, there was nothing he could do. Fortunately, he finally got what he wanted. He looked at Qi Lingzhen and others in the distance and said, "Let's not delay. Are you all ready?" Qi Lingzhen smiled and said, "No need to prepare. We can go to the Heaven's Judgment Arena now." Zhong Liran, Gu Shaoyin and Fu Chaoxing couldn't help laughing. They were overjoyed and even a little incredulous that this battle could be realized. After all, everyone knew that Lin Sun had just broken through the realm. Under such circumstances, wasn't he courting death? Let's go to the Heaven's Judgment Arena. Fu Wenli and others couldn't wait. Fearing that something unexpected would happen, they immediately took action. How could they miss such a life-and-death duel? They all rushed to the Heaven's Judgment Arena like a tide. "Are you sure?" Du Guyong looked at Lin Sun and couldn't help asking. Lin Sun nodded with a smile. Du Guyong, Fang Daoping and Xian Feiling looked at each other and sighed in their hearts. Knowing that they couldn't persuade Lin Sun any longer, they also took action. "Child, I believe in you." Jintian Xianyue stepped forward, her white clothes fluttering in the wind. Her beautiful face was full of seriousness, but she looked very obedient in front of Lin Sun. "Xianyue knows me best." Lin Sun couldn't help laughing. Even further away, Du Guyuran, who was dressed in a green dress, saw this scene. She felt an indescribable sense of discomfort and sourness in her heart. The Heaven's Judgment Arena. Located by the Yuan Kong Mountain, it had always been under the control of the Yuan Kong Pavilion. This arena was extremely large, like a floating land in the void. It was pitch black and glowed with a strange metallic luster. It was made of thousands of immortal materials and covered with ancient prohibitions. Even a battle at the immortal level couldn't destroy this arena. At this time, all the big shots and successors of Yuan's school had arrived. Densely packed figures surrounded the Heaven's Judgment arena. When Lin Sun arrived, a young man became the focus of everyone's attention. Everyone knew that once you stepped into the Heaven's Judgment arena, there was no way to back out. You either lived or died. Lin Sun looked at the Heaven's Judgment arena. Qi Lingzhen's imposing figure was already standing there. "Junior brother, please," Qi Lingzhen said loudly. He was wearing a bright yellow robe and had a handsome face. His entire body was surrounded by the aura of the immortal principle. He looked like a god descending to the mortal world with an astonishing aura. He had cultivated for less than 3,000 years. He was considered very young among the immortal level. Of course, he was also stunning. However, Lin Sun didn't act immediately. He frowned and said, "Why are you alone? I'm going to fight the four of you." Everyone was stunned, and they were almost dumbfounded. What did he mean? Was he going to fight the four of them alone? P.S. I'll post the 5th update first. I'm writing the 6th update now. It'll be a bit late, around 10:30. Chapter 28:34. Qi Lingzhen was stunned and asked subconsciously, "You think I'm no match for you?" His voice was full of disbelief. How could a newcomer who had just stepped into the immortal realm dare to say that? "Whether I'm a match or not, we'll know after the battle." Then, Lin Sun looked at Zhongliran, Gu Xiaoyin and Fu Chaoxing in the distance and said, "Senior brothers, now that you've agreed to fight, let's go to the Heaven's Judgment field." Zhongliran and the others also looked strange. Then, as if they had been greatly offended, they couldn't help but laugh out of anger. 1 against 4? He didn't take them seriously at all. At this time, people finally realized that Lin Sun was not joking. He was serious. "Are you sure?" Zhongliran still didn't believe it. "You don't dare?" Lin Sun asked back. The same 3 words, but Lin Sun's question was like a sharp knife, which made Zhongliran's face turn gloomy. "All right, I'll fulfill your wish today. When you die, you can die with a bang." Zhongliran jumped into the Heaven's Judgment field. Gu Xiaoyin and Fu Chaoxing also snorted and rushed into the Heaven's Judgment field. They wouldn't flinch in this matter. Seeing this, Lin Sun smiled and said, "That's good. Lin Sun, why do you insist on doing this?" Xian Feiling couldn't help asking again. He couldn't understand Lin Sun's behavior. It was too rash and impulsive. All eyes were on Lin Sun. This arranged battle was extremely disadvantageous to him, yet he still insisted on bringing Zhongliran and the others along. This was simply too insane. They all wondered why Lin Sun was so insistent. Lin Sun's answer was very simple. He said casually, "I'm worried that they will give in and not dare to fight." His casual words caused an uproar among the audience. Oh, does he think he can ignore everything since he's proved the immortal realm? In my opinion, he just wants to die a glorious death. After all, it's said that he died in the hands of 4 senior brothers, not 1. Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun and others all sneered. Lin Sun's seemingly calm but incomparably arrogant attitude annoyed them and made them feel ridiculous. Brother Lin is really the same as before. He hasn't changed at all. Xian Zhuyin couldn't help but recall the scenes when he and Lin Sun crossed the starry sky on the airship, and his eyes were full of yearning and yearning. That's how the young master thinks. People laugh at him for being too arrogant, but who would know that in his heart, he really thinks that way? When the battle is over, I believe that no one will dare to think that way anymore. Jintian Xianyue said softly. Her clear eyes rippled with extraordinary splendor. While the crowd was in an uproar, Lin Sun had already walked in the air and arrived at the arena of Heaven's Judgment, which immediately attracted everyone's attention. From this moment on, Lin Sun, Qi Lingzhen and the other 3 had no chance to withdraw, let alone to regret. Unless the winner took the initiative to let the loser live. Otherwise, this would be a life and death situation. You three, please stand aside and watch the battle. I will give junior brother Lin Sun some advice on how to use the power of the immortal level. Qi Lingzhen said calmly. The killing intent that he had suppressed in his heart for a long time was almost uncontrollable. Zhong Liran and the others naturally wouldn't object. They all crossed their arms in front of their chests and stood far away, with a sneer and pity on their faces. The immortal level might not have enough time to condense the immortal rule, master the new power, or consolidate the new realm. At this time, what was the difference between fighting with them, who had been immersed in this realm for many years, and courting death? They really couldn't see how likely Lin Sun was to survive. Boom! The black immortal rule rushed out of Qi Lingzhen's body and surrounded him like a divine halo. The rule rotated and developed a disaster purgatory, chaotic and boundlessly terrifying. The Qi clan's chaotic power of order is indeed extraordinary. The immortal rule condensed from it can be regarded as the best among the 9 heaven rank laws. Its power is bound to be extraordinary. Fu Wenli sighed. The cultivation of the immortal level needed to comprehend and condense their own immortal rule from the power of order. For example, Qi Lingzhen's immortal rule was condensed from the Qi clan's supreme order, the chaotic order. Therefore, it could be regarded as a rare 9th rank heaven rank immortal rule. That kind of power could naturally suppress the immortal rule at this level. In short, a heavenly longevity realm cultivator who had mastered the immortal rule would definitely be crushed by someone at the same level as Qi Lingzhen. This was the importance of the power of order. The reason why the 10 immortal giants of the 8th heaven could have the power to affect the eternal world was that the power of order they possessed was too terrifying. Xian Feiling and the others couldn't help but look worried. Lin Sun had just broken through the realm and most likely hadn't condensed the immortal rule yet. How could he fight with Qi Lingzhen? Junior brother, in this life and death battle, I won't hold back and I won't show mercy. Do you understand? Qi Lingzhen said indifferently. His figure was covered in the immortal rule, like a god who controlled chaos and disaster. His power was terrifying. Me too, Lin Sun said casually. His aura was obscure and inexplicable, like chaos. All right. Qi Lingzhen no longer concealed the killing intent in his heart. He released his aura and reached out his hand. A Taoist sword condensed from the immortal rule suddenly condensed in front of him. The chaotic scene of purgatory appeared on the Taoist sword. The aura it gave off moved some immortal figures. They didn't expect that Qi Lingzhen's attainment in this realm had reached such a profound level. A Taoist sword like this could easily kill all Emperor Realm cultivators. Even in the outside world, ordinary heavenly longevity realm cultivators couldn't withstand its power. Because it was a rare immortal rule of the 9th level of the heaven rank. Go! Qi Lingzhen waved his sleeve. Swish! The void between him and Lin Sun suddenly tore a straight crack, and the Taoist sword had already slashed towards Lin Sun's head. It was unbelievably fast. It was also terrifying to the point that it made people's scalps tingle. Those descendants of the Zhu Xian great ancestor couldn't even see the sword's trajectory clearly. They felt a stabbing pain in their hearts. At this moment, big shots like Xian Feiling, Xian Juyin, and Jintian Xianyue couldn't help but feel nervous. Clang! An earth-shattering collision sound rang out, and many people's eardrums hurt. Something unexpected happened. The immortal Taoist sword was blocked in front of Lin Sun and stopped in midair. It trembled violently and released a terrifying aura of chaos and destruction. But no matter how much it struggled, it was useless. As Lin Sun flicked his finger, the Taoist sword condensed from the 9th level of the heaven rank seemed to have been hit by a supreme force. It exploded inch by inch in the void, turning into an endless rain of light. Many people were dumbfounded. They didn't see how Lin Sun did it. Those big shots also revealed looks of shock and bewilderment. They had seen the whole battle and were keenly aware that Qi Lingzhen's sword was blocked by the aura of the immortal rule emanating from Lin Sun. But it was hard to believe. He had condensed the immortal rule just after breaking through? And he could even resist the chaotic rule of the 9th level of the heaven rank? In the distance, Qi Lingzhen raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, "Junior brother, you've condensed the immortal rule?" "I took the opportunity to temper it during the heavenly tribulation," Lin Sun said casually, looking very calm. "No wonder you're so fearless. Try this sword again." Qi Lingzhen narrowed his eyes and then waved his sleeves. A new sword Qi condensed on the tip of his finger. It was only 2 fingers wide, but the sword Qi suddenly slashed out like the source of chaos. Swish! Everyone felt as if the world was being torn apart. Everything fell into a chaotic purgatory. All kinds of doomsday disasters suddenly broke out and swept the world. It was just a sword, but it was full of mysteries and terrifying to an incredible extent. There was no doubt that this was Qi Lingzhen's real unique skill. It was his perfect interpretation of the immortal rule. However, a similar scene happened again. When the sword reached Lin Sun, it was blocked and produced an earth-shattering explosion. Its power was shocking, but it couldn't get within 3 feet of Lin Sun. Lin Sun flicked his finger again, and the sword Qi was broken. That simple scene shocked everyone present. They looked at each other in dismay. In their expectation, Lin Sun might be killed by the sword, or he might be seriously injured, or he might dodge in embarrassment. But they didn't expect that he could still break the sword with a flick of his finger. Xian Feiling and other big shots, who were originally nervous, gradually relaxed. They vaguely understood that they were worried about nothing just now. Although Lin Sun had just broken through the realm, he had condensed his own immortal rule. Although it was incredible, it was the truth. Otherwise, how could he crush Qi Lingzhen's attack so easily? A wisp of gloominess appeared on the faces of Fu Wenli and the others because such a fact had exceeded their expectations. Qi Lingzhen also didn't expect that his second sword would be so easily resolved. "It seems that I really can't underestimate you, junior brother." There was a gloomy anger in his eyes, and his qi was surging all over his body. Boom! He stepped into the air, and the immortal halo behind him glowed. Countless violent torrents of chaos emerged and all gathered in his palm. The nearby void collapsed as if it had been sucked out. But Qi Lingzhen had already punched out. It was just like the origin of chaos in the beginning of time. Heaven and earth were turned upside down, and yin and yang were in chaos. This punch was full of great terror. But in the distance, a trace of disdain and uncontrollable coldness flashed in Lin Sun's eyes. He suddenly waved his sleeves. Boom! Qi Lingzhen's terrifying punch was easily shattered into pieces, and it transformed into a rain of light that swept out and caused rumbling sounds to resound. At that moment, it was like a chaotic disaster was drowned by a violent hurricane torrent. Qi Lingzhen's body shook violently, like a small boat being hit by stormy waves, and he was almost shaken back. His face changed immediately. The whole audience was in an uproar. Many people were dumbfounded and shocked by Lin Sun's overbearing power. They couldn't believe that a man who had just broken through the realm could have such power. Even those big shots couldn't calm down at this moment. Qi Lingzhen had been in the immortal realm for many years, and he had reached the consummation of the early stage of Heaven Longevity Realm. He had rich combat experience, and his foundation was terrifying. The immortal rule he mastered was the best in the world. In contrast, Lin Sun, who had just stepped into this realm, was simply a newcomer in the immortal realm. However, Qi Lingzhen had actually suffered setbacks repeatedly in this battle. Not to mention Fu Wenli, even Xian Feiling and the others had never thought that Lin Sun could do this. Just how many benefits did he gain from that unprecedented calamity? P.S. The outbreak is over. I haven't finished writing the battle, but I really can't write anymore. I've been writing since the morning, and I'm in a bad mood. I'll try my best to defeat Qi Lingzhen tomorrow. Chapter 28:35. All the people present were shocked by Lin Sun's power. Those bigwigs all realized that Lin Sun must have gained great benefits in the previous Tao proving tribulation. It was also very likely that he had condensed his own immortal law in the Tao test. It was unbelievable. At this moment, Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaoxing, who had been standing at the edge of the Heaven's Inquisition arena, had already put away their disdain and looked shocked and solemn. Qi Lingzhen was the first disciple of Yuankong Pavilion and the strongest among them. But his attacks were repeatedly defeated by Lin Sun, which made them all realize that something was wrong. "Senior brother, aren't you going to instruct me? Go on," Lin Sun said calmly. These words were like great sarcasm, which made Qi Lingzhen's face extremely gloomy. "Humph!" he suddenly snorted. 4 strands of sword qi suddenly appeared around his figure, steaming with different horrible scenes. These 4 strands of sword qi each represented a kind of supreme immortal law named heaven punishment, earth destruction, calamity arrival, and chaos rising. With the appearance of these 4 strands of sword qi, Qi Lingzhen's power rose to the extreme. The immortal law rolled and disturbed the world. This was Qi Lingzhen's killing move, which gathered the essence of his immortal cultivation. Go! With a loud roar, the heaven-punishing sword qi swept out, giving off the feeling that even the sky itself would be destroyed by this sword, falling into oblivion. There was a burst of exclamations outside the arena. But Lin Sun also took a deep breath at this moment. His figure, which had been standing still, rushed forward without dodging. The heaven punishment sword qi came in an instant. Lin Sun raised his fist and bombarded it. Peerless chaotic flows of energy shot towards the surroundings. The punch was like a boundlessly deep abyss, and it emanated the might to obliterate everything. Moreover, it was filled with the obscure eternal laws, causing this punch to simply seem as if it intended to swallow the ages and shatter the universe. Bang! In just a moment, the heaven punishment sword qi was obliterated and disappeared without a trace. This shocked the audience, and many people's faces changed. Go! In the distance, Qi Lingzhen shouted. The earth destruction sword qi suddenly rose into the sky and cut down angrily. The sword qi reflected the purgatory scene of the earth cracking, mountains and rivers collapsing, and all things dying. Lin Sun, who was rushing forward, punched again in the same way. Ka-cha ka-cha. A wave of dense and chaotic explosions resounded out. This strand of sword qi exploded like firecrackers, and a rain of light shot out in all directions. It was gorgeous, resplendent, and horrifying. Qi Lingzhen's expression couldn't help but change when his 2 swords were destroyed as easily as crushing dry weeds. He didn't dare to hesitate and released the last 2 swords in one go. Calamity was coming. Chaotic rise. The 2 swords reflected off each other, creating a scene of doomsday. A torrent of disaster swept across the sky and earth, causing great turmoil and chaos. Countless stars fell from the sky, and heaven and earth were destroyed. The Ju-Shi progenitor heirs couldn't help but gasp. However, an earth-shattering collision resounded. The 2 strands of sword qi, which contained the essence of Qi Lingzhen's cultivation, were punched open by Lin Sun's fist again and burst into pieces in the void. An endless rain of light scattered down, so dazzling, so shocking. Heaven punishing, earth extinguishing, calamity descending, chaos rising. The 4 swords were so horrible, but they were broken by Lin Sun all the way. Those big shots outside the field couldn't help but be shocked by this scene and couldn't calm down. At this time, Lin Sun's figure had already come to Qi Lingzhen. He punched out. A trace of panic flashed through Qi Lingzhen's eyes. But after all, he was a peerless figure who had been immersed in the longevity realm for many years. At this critical moment, he didn't hesitate to form palm prints and crisscross them in front of him. The defensive treasures on his body were also released with the roar of his qi. But after all, he didn't understand what the immortal supremacy was. Boom! Under Lin Sun's punch, Qi Lingzhen's interlaced palm prints exploded like fireworks. His arms turned into blood foam in the harsh sound of the explosion. Then Qi Lingzhen's whole body shot out fiercely and fell hundreds of meters away. Qi Lingzhen's mouth and nose were bleeding, his hair was disheveled, and his arms were gone. The defensive treasures on his body were cracked and dim, and there was a shocking fist mark in his chest. The flesh around the fist mark was burnt, and the white bones could be seen. He looked extremely miserable. The audience was shocked, and many people cried out involuntarily. Qi Lingzhen was defeated with one punch. That kind of unparalleled and overbearing power made people's scalp numb and mind tremble. No one could believe that this was the power of a young man who had just reached the immortal realm. This boy Xian Feiling, Du Guyong, Fang Daoping, and other big shots looked at each other and saw the surprise in each other's eyes. Before, they were all worried and tried to persuade Lin Sun to retreat for the time being. They were even angry at Lin Sun's persistence and thought that he was too reckless. But now they finally understood where Lin Sun's confidence came from. Damn it! What kind of power did this boy obtain in the immortal tribulation? Is it really the immortal supremacy that the Master of the Heart Core mentioned? This realm only exists in the legends. It can't be true. At the same time, Fu Wenli and other big shots' faces darkened. Their eyes were filled with shock and anger, and they couldn't believe what they had just seen. They were old fogies at the immortal realm, and they had seen many Zhu Xian great ancestors in their lives. But they had never seen anyone like Lin Sun, who had just broken through and already possessed such heaven-defying combat power. He was simply a freak. This completely shattered their understanding of the world. If they had known earlier, they wouldn't have agreed to this battle so easily. They had been looking forward to the scene of Lin Sun being killed, but now they were only left with shock and anger. Watch out! In the Heaven's Judgment Arena, Qi Xiaoyun shouted anxiously when he saw Lin Sun rushing toward Qi Lingzhen. He was the vice-head of Sky Origin Pavilion, but he was also Qi Lingzhen's great-grandfather. Under such circumstances, how could he not worry about Qi Lingzhen's safety? Whoosh! At this critical moment, 3 figures rushed out and moved across the void, blocking in front of Qi Lingzhen. They were Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaosheng. Qi Xiaoyun and the other big shots couldn't help but sigh in relief when they saw this. Fortunately, there were 4 Immortal Realm disciples here, or the consequences would be dire. In the arena, Lin Sun stopped and sneered, "Do you still think it's an insult to you to let you join in?" As soon as he said this, everyone's expressions changed. In the beginning, no one thought well of Lin Sun. They thought it was crazy for him to persist in this battle, and to fight 1 against 4 was simply insane. But now they realized that Lin Sun had the confidence. His persistence wasn't arrogance, nor was it insane. It was because he didn't fear fighting 4 Immortal Realm existences at all. Zhong Liran said coldly, "You can't be thinking that you can really defeat the 4 of us by yourself, right? It's not victory, it's killing." Lin Sun corrected him seriously and spoke casually, "No matter if it's you or me, we won't be able to leave this place." Such an unyielding stance caused everyone's hearts to tremble. "Make your move. Let's end this quickly." Qi Lingzhen walked forward. His arms had been reconstructed, and the injuries all over his body had healed. However, his face was very pale, and his eyes were filled with hatred. Under the gazes of everyone, being defeated by Lin Sun in such a manner caused his dignity to be trampled upon, and he felt unprecedented shame. Whoosh! A Taoist sword appeared in front of him. This was an immortal Tao weapon. It was completely black, and it reflected a chaotic sharpness that made one's heart palpitate. "All right, let's send him on his way together." Terrifying Immortal Realm power surged out of Zhong Liran and the others. Their auras reached the heavens and covered the entire battlefield. They all knew that even if they killed Lin Sun, it would be very dishonorable. After all, it was 4 against 1, so they wanted to end the battle quickly. Clang! A golden halberd appeared in Zhong Liran's hand. Immortal qi raged, and its murderous aura shook the world. Almost at the same time, an immortal Dao weapon appeared in Gu Xiaoyin and Fu Chaoxing's hands. It was a purple spear and a crimson saber respectively. Their power was extremely terrifying, and it was obvious that they weren't ordinary. Boom! Qi Lingzhen attacked first. His Taoist sword tore through the sky and slashed towards Lin Sun. The others also attacked from different directions. They all used terrifying methods, and their blood energy surged into the sky as they attacked fiercely. Lin Sun didn't retreat. An indescribable immortal divine ring appeared behind him. From afar, it looked like a great abyss floating and sinking. As the abyss rotated, it drew in the mysterious light of laws. He operated his cultivation, and his aura changed as well. He was like the ruler of the abyss. Whoosh! Qi Lingzhen's Taoist sword slashed over, and it was enough to pierce through the sky. Lin Sun waved his palm and condensed a brilliant and mysterious sword qi to fight against it. Rumbling sounds rang out, and the void distorted and exploded. Qi! Zhong Liran's golden halberd pierced forward like a waterfall. Crack! The void was slashed open. Gu Xiaoyin held the purple spear and slashed down, aiming for Lin Sun's head. In addition, Fu Chaoxing's crimson saber also fell. It was extremely sharp, and its luster was violent. It pierced through the sky and went straight for Lin Sun's vital parts. Boom! Lin Sun's Taoist body glowed, and all kinds of marvelous Taoist arts emerged. The immortal divine ring behind him turned into rays of divine rainbows that rushed in all directions, attacking indiscriminately. In addition, lightning surged between his hands, and the immortal light gathered. It either turned into palm prints, fist energy, or sword fingers and exploded here. The power in his body was completely released like a volcanic eruption. The immortal force surged and swept in all directions. This was a huge collision. Lin Sun fought against 4 immortal realm enemies alone. As soon as the battle broke out, it became an unprecedentedly fierce battle. In the battlefield, the immortal rule rolled like a tide, and all kinds of Taoist soldiers roared, setting off endless terrifying visions. Everyone outside the battlefield held their breath and watched the battle nervously. Many people couldn't help clenching their hands and sweating for Lin Sun. After all, everyone could see that Qi Lingzhen and the others were really angry and full of killing intent. They were attacking with all their strength. It was 4 against 1, and they had the upper hand. Even though Lin Sun had shown extremely powerful combat power before, he had just broken through and was alone. It was hard not to worry about him. Xian Feiling, De Guyong, and other big shots looked serious. Fu Wenli and the others were also watching the battle attentively. Chapter 28-36. Boom! In the Heaven's Judgment Field, all kinds of Tao soldiers and secret methods fell. Even someone as powerful as Lin Sun was besieged. It didn't take long for him to be in a passive situation. People only saw Qi Lingzhen and his companions were mighty and powerful. They demonstrated the way of killing to the extreme, and the immortal breath penetrated the universe. But Lin Sun was still unarmed. He was surrounded by enemies from all sides and couldn't even break through the heavy siege. He could only fight passively. Look, Lin Sun seems to be dying. Deacon Xuan seemed to be unable to restrain his inner excitement and cried out. This aroused a lot of displeased eyes and criticism. What do you mean he's dying? Lin Sun has just broken through, but he can fight against the killing of 4 older immortal disciples on his own. Who in the world can do this? Even if Lin Sun loses this battle, his name will go down in history and be praised by future generations. You're still a deacon, but you gloat like this. Shame on you. Suddenly, Xuan's face darkened. He wanted to argue but couldn't. He was about to explode with anger. He really couldn't refute. Lin Sun had more than just broken through, and more than 1 against 4. Up to now, he was still fighting with his bare hands. Qi Lingzhen and his companions all used the immortal Tao soldiers that they had cultivated for many years. What a disgrace! Du Guyong, the deputy head of Yuan Su Pavilion, also glanced at Xuan coldly at this moment. The coldness in his eyes made Xuan tremble all over. At this time, in the battlefield, Qi Lingjun pierced through Lin Sun's defense with his sword and splashed blood, which made everyone's heart jump. When Lin Sun dodged, although he managed to avoid being hit in the vital parts, his arm was still injured by the sword light. Bright red blood dripped down. The injury wasn't very serious, but the surging sword qi contained a spiritual will that wanted to destroy his body. Break! Lin Sun shouted. The immortal Tao light all over his body rose like a furnace. He shook violently and crushed the power of the sword from his body. Boom! Zhong Liran's golden halberd collided with Lin Sun. The void collapsed, and the clanging sound of the collision was like dense thunder, making people's souls palpitate. Bang! When Gu Xiaoyin's purple spear fell, Lin Sun attacked sideways and hit the edge of the spear with his palms and fingers. The clanging sound was deafening and sparks were flying. Before all of this could end, Qi Lingjun's sword and Fu Chaosheng's blade had already arrived once more. Eternal auras suffused the surroundings while the glow of the Tao surged violently. They cooperated tacitly and went all out to kill Lin, putting Lin in danger. The ones fighting intensely with many people were all the most powerful experts of the younger generation. They were all undying heroes who were ranked at the top of the Sky Origin Pavilion, and could be considered the most powerful among the disciples. Naturally, their situation wasn't good. After all, he had just broken through. All this was seen by people, and they were more worried about Lin Sun. But Lin Sun, who was in the middle of the battle, was calm and composed. He had just grasped the power of a completely new realm, so he felt slightly shaky. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so conservative when he fought Qi Lingjun at the beginning. But what no one knew was that during the tribulation, his body had been destroyed many times, and because of this, he had undergone many transformations and sublimations. Especially the last time, a drop of origin blood essence absorbed the power of the Nirvana order and used the vitality of the Great Tribulation to reconstruct his Taoist body. This allowed his cultivation to obtain the power of the Nirvana order through continuous tempering, and he naturally condensed the immortal law. This was the key reason why he was able to destroy the tribulation light and cut open the tribulation cloud. Similarly, no one knew how heaven-defying the combat strength he currently possessed was. It was like a taboo, far beyond what he had ever possessed in the past. Even though he was fighting against 4 undying heroes at this moment, even though he was in a passive situation, Lin Sun didn't feel too threatened. The reason why he was suppressed and even injured was because he couldn't use the power of the sempiternal realm as he wished. But now, as the battle continued, the use of his own power was transforming at an astonishing speed. Some big shots were keenly aware that the combat strength and power Lin Sun was releasing were clearly becoming stronger. Even though he was being suppressed, he couldn't suppress the momentum of his growth. Qi Lingjun and the others were the most direct and clearest about it. Since the beginning of the battle, only a short moment had passed. All of them had used their full strength and executed their killer moves many times in an attempt to kill Lin Sun. But Lin Sun was always able to avert danger. What shocked them even more was that Lin Sun seemed to be undergoing a transformation during the battle. His combat strength was practically changing at all times. Boom! Lin Sun was still fighting the enemies barehanded. He shook off the halberds and the spears. He was unstoppable and wanted to break out of the encirclement. This caused the faces of Qi Lingjun and the others to turn gloomy, and they attacked fiercely together. It would be too embarrassing if they couldn't kill Lin Sun with their strength. Lin Sun condensed a seal, and his aura changed abruptly. He looked down upon the world and charged forward. At this moment, he was violent. Tao techniques interweaved into light and charged forward. Peerlessly terrifying might swept out like raging waves. In an instant, the Tao soldiers that were charging over from all directions were repelled amidst buzzing sound. Amidst the exclamations, the encirclement of Qi Lingjun and the others was instantly broken. Lin Sun rushed out of the encirclement like a dragon returning to the sea. His immortal Tao light surged, shocking everyone present. He broke through the encirclement. There was an uproar outside, mixed with the sound of people gasping. Whether it was the big shots or the heirs, they were all shocked by this scene. Was Lin Sun going to reverse the situation? Kill! Qi Lingjun and the others had extremely ugly expressions. All of them attacked with all their strength as if they were risking their lives. Now, it's my turn to attack. At this moment, Lin Sun was like a peerless divine weapon that had been tempered thousands of times. He suddenly let out a long roar and rushed forward. He slashed out a sword Qi. At first, it was obscure and dim like chaos, but when it was slashed out, divine light burst out and illuminated the world. Crack! The purple spear in Gu Shaoyin's hand was broken, and a precious treasure was destroyed. The sword light flashed and almost cut off Gu Shaoyin's arm. He quickly retreated, and his face was full of pain and unbearable. His undying Tao weapon was destroyed, cut apart by a single sword strike. This was something he couldn't accept. Lin Sun was still barehanded, and he only slashed out with sword Qi, but his precious treasure was destroyed. How horrible was this? Everyone outside the arena was shocked and their pupils contracted. At this time, Lin Sun seemed to be a different person. His whole body was surging with an invincible momentum. He was so powerful that it made people tremble. Boom! The battle in the arena became more and more intense. But the situation had become different. Lin Sun took the initiative to attack. Every time Qi Lingjun and the others besieged him, they would be pushed back by his invincible power. They could no longer suppress him as before. This made Qi Lingjun and the others shocked and angry, and their faces were livid. How could he turn the situation around in a 1-on-4 battle? Crack! Soon, when Fu Chaosheng waved his saber, it was hit by Lin Sun's fist and broke into 2 pieces on the spot. The terrifying power of the punch shook Fu Chaosheng and made him bleed from his mouth and nose. He flew backward and suffered a lot of injuries. He was shocked and couldn't believe his eyes. At this moment, Lin Sun really showed an invincible momentum. The divine ring made these people's faces turn pale, and they were forced to resist passively. Isn't he too fierce? Outside the arena, many people were dumbfounded and completely shocked. Who could believe that Lin Sun, who was barehanded, could turn the situation around and fight back in a 1-on-4 battle? It was incredible. He has honed his brand new power in the battle, and now he has a deep understanding of the power of the immortal level. But the power he has mastered is too amazing. Du Guyong was stunned and couldn't believe it. Maybe this is the reason why the owner of the square inch has been waiting for so long. Such an immortal path is destined to be incomparable to others in the world. Xian Failing sighed. He finally understood where Lin Sun's confidence came from. With such a supreme immortal path, how could he be afraid of enemies in the same realm? Fang Daoping, Qin Wuyu, and other big shots were also surprised. They thought of the scene when they had just broken through to the immortal level. Compared with Lin Sun, they were nothing. The faces of Fu Wenli and the others turned pale. How could they accept Lin Sun's counterattack? They had hoped that they could kill Lin Sun in a 4-on-1 battle. But now it seemed that everything was uncertain. On the battlefield, puff, blood splashed out from Qi Lingjun's shoulder. He was almost killed by Lin Sun's sword Qi. Seeing Lin Sun coming at him again, Qi Lingjun seemed to have thrown caution to the wind. He exerted his most powerful talent, divine wheel of chaos. The chaotic laws interweaved and turned into a wheel as round as a millstone. Countless symbols of the Great Way appeared in the wheel, rolling and surging. There seemed to be a chaotic scene of demons and gods falling, and the sky falling and the earth cracking. The entire heaven's judgment arena shook violently. Restrictive power surged out to neutralize the effects of that terrifying power. Go! Qi Lingjun roared. All his strength seemed to have been sucked out and gathered in the divine wheel of chaos. This strike was full of destructive power that made people feel desperate. People outside the arena held their breath. They were amazed by such an amazing strike. Seeing this, Lin Sun turned into a furnace and pressed down without hesitation. Boom! The divine wheel of chaos collided with the furnace. The heaven's judgment arena was turbulent and chaotic. The torrent of the great way was raging and roaring like a broken dam. The horrible light was so dazzling that people couldn't open their eyes. That scene had already completely exceeded the scope of what most of the successors could understand. In the eyes of the big shots, they saw an unforgettable scene in their lifetime. Lin Sun's figure, like a furnace of chaos, suppressed the divine wheel of chaos with an invincible momentum. Then, the divine wheel of chaos was crushed inch by inch and collapsed in the void. The splashing rain of light and the resounding roar disturbed the world. Under such a heavy blow, Qi Lingjun's body exploded. Blood splashed everywhere. His spirit escaped and screamed in horror, "Help me!" In fact, there was no need for his reminder. Zhong Liran and the other two had already sensed the danger and rushed over at once. But how could Lin Sun give Qi Lingjun a chance? He suddenly stretched out his body and caught Qi Lingjun's spirit, which was about to escape, in his palm. P.S. 3 things. 1. There will be more updates tonight. 2. Today was her and Goldfish's first wedding anniversary. On Goldfish's official account, there was an article with their wedding photos. If you haven't seen it, you might as well click on the Add Me button and check the historical news to see it. 3. On the first day of the month, I want a guaranteed monthly ticket. All this nonsense is free. Chapter 28:37. The Divine Wheel of Chaos. It was the innate bloodline power of the direct descendants of the Qi clan, which was combined with the law of chaos. Its power had been famous in the eighth heaven for a long time. As the great-grandfather of Qi Lingjun, Qi Shaoyun naturally knew the horror of this kind of talent. But he didn't expect that even though Qi Lingjun used the divine wheel of chaos, it was still destroyed by Lin Sun's overbearing suppression power. When he saw the scene that Qi Lingjun's Taoist body was smashed and his spirit was grasped, his heart seemed to be grasped fiercely. His face changed greatly and he shouted subconsciously, "Stop!" The two words resounded through the whole field like thunder. Xian Feiling sneered at once. Since such a life-and-death duel had begun, no one could interfere or stop it. He was about to scold Qi Shaoyun to pay attention to the rules, but at this moment, bang! In the arena of heaven's judgment, Qi Lingjun's spirit exploded in Lin Sun's palm and dissipated like bubbles. Lin Sun's figure had already retreated far away, avoiding the violent attacks of Zhong Liran and the other two. Everyone was shocked by this scene, and they revealed looks of disbelief. Qi Shaoyun was the first disciple of Yuankong Pavilion and a direct descendant of the Qi clan. His great-grandfather, Qi Shaoyun, was watching the battle outside the field. But he was killed like this? This sudden scene of death caused the hearts of those great figures to tremble, and their expressions changed. Qi Lingjun was killed. His body and spirit were destroyed, and there was no possibility of him coming back to life. This left some of the inheritors horrified, stupefied. In the case of 1 against 4, Lin Sun shook the group of enemies and killed Qi Lingjun at this moment. This was simply shocking. Looking at Qi Shaoyun, the blue veins on his face were bulging, and his eyes were full of killing intent. It seemed that he was about to go berserk after being stimulated. In the arena of heaven's judgment, all the power of order and forbidden secret treasures were suppressed. The duel in it depended on one's cultivation and combat power. Because of this, some of Qi Lingjun's life-saving trump cards failed to save Qi Lingjun's life at the last moment. Although he knew this, when he saw Qi Lingjun was killed in front of him, it was like a knife in his heart, which made Qi Shaoyun furious. In the heavenly judgment arena, Zhong Liran, Gu Shaoyin, and Fu Chaoxing felt their bodies go cold as well. Qi Lingzhen's death caused them to be unable to maintain their composure, and deep fear surged within their hearts. Before, they disdained to deal with Lin Sun together. Later, they realized that Lin Sun's combat strength was incredible, so they attacked together regardless of face, thinking that they could kill Lin Sun in this way. But now it seemed that they were all wrong. It's your turn. In the distance, Lin Sun looked indifferent. Killing Qi Lingzhen was not enough to vent his inner hatred. Whoosh! As soon as he finished speaking, his figure vanished on the spot, and when he appeared once more, he'd already arrived before Zhongliran before raising his fist and smashing down. The heavenly judgment arena had no place to retreat. It was either life or death. Zhongliran didn't dare dally, and he exerted his cultivation to the limit as if he was going all out. In addition, Fu Chaoxing and Gu Xiaoyin also cooperated with Zhongliran to launch a pincer attack on Lin Sun. However, they couldn't suppress Lin Sun with Qi Lingzhen's help, let alone now. Even if he risked his life, it would not be enough. Bang! In the intense battle, Lin Sun swung his fist in a boundlessly overbearing manner. His eternal laws sometimes transformed into an obscure abyss, sometimes transformed into a furnace of chaos, and he seemed to be unparalleled. Such might caused countless people in the surroundings to be horrified. It wasn't long before Zhongliran and the others were injured repeatedly. "I'll fight you to the death." Suddenly, Zhongliran, who was bathed in blood and injured, roared furiously. His eyes were bloodshot while his hair fluttered with rage. His entire body suddenly surged with snow-white divine flames, and they interweaved to form a mysterious white datura flower in the air. Innate ability, cleansing flame of whiteness. The strange white flower burned and emanated boundless snow-white flames that covered the entire area and drowned Lin Sun's figure. A wave of exclamations resounded from outside the arena. The flames were too overbearing, and they raged through the arena and melted the heaven and earth there. If it wasn't for the protection of the restrictive force, once the flames were released, they would definitely destroy the mountains and rivers here. Such might caused even some immortal figures to shudder with fear. Without a doubt, this was a desperate attack. However, when the boundless white rain of flames dispersed, Lin Sun's figure appeared completely unharmed within everyone's field of vision. Even his clothes weren't damaged in the slightest. Zhongliran simply seemed as if he'd been struck by lightning when he saw this scene. This blow was too great indeed. His strongest attack was actually unable to injure Lin Sun in the slightest. Die. Lin Sun lightly spat out a single word. Countless strands of peerless sword qi surged out from his body, and they formed an immortal and vast sword formation in the sky that rumbled as it pressed down. Zhongliran was utterly unable to dodge because he was surrounded by ghastly sword qi from all directions, and he had nowhere to run. "Open!" he roared loudly. His entire body seemed as if it was burning, and his eternal energy erupted with the intention of breaking open a path to survival. However, to his despair, the sword formation was unbreakable and couldn't be shaken at all. Bang! The sword formation descended and completely drowned Zhongliran's figure. He perished just like that, and not even a trace of him remained. Not far away, Fu Chaoxing and Gu Xiaoyin were so shocked that they had goosebumps all over their bodies. They had tried to block the sword formation for Zhongliran before, but it didn't help at all. If they hadn't dodged in time, it was very likely that they would have been implicated. Dead, everyone outside the arena was in a trance. The successive deaths of Qi Lingzhen and Zhongliran deeply shocked everyone present. They couldn't imagine how such immortal figures like them could be killed by Lin Sun, who had just broken through the realm. This was incredible. Damn it. Several big shots of the Zhongli family saw this scene, and they were also furious. They couldn't wait to rush into the arena and kill Lin Sun. No wonder he insisted on letting the 4 people enter the arena of heaven's judgment together. Otherwise, I'm afraid other opponents wouldn't dare to accept the challenge. Xian Failing let out a long breath. Lin Sun's iron-blooded means shocked these old people, and they finally understood why Lin Sun was so insistent before the battle. "I'm afraid he's going to kill all of us," Duguyong said in a low voice. Sure enough, in the arena of heaven's judgment, Lin Sun had already launched an attack, rushing towards Gu Xiaoyin and Fu Chaosheng. The two had long been frightened and fearful, but there was no way out. Because this was the arena of heaven's judgment. Once entered, there was no way out. Otherwise, they would still have the confidence to escape in such a battle. Undoubtedly, it was too late to say this now. Boom! Lin Sun rushed over, and Gu Xiaoyin fought desperately against him. But in less than a moment, he was hit by Lin Sun's palm. His body suddenly exploded, and blood flew high. "Junior brother, can you spare my life?" Gu Xiaoyin's spirit hissed. "No." Lin Sun's words were cold. His palm and fingers, like a curtain covering the sky, shrouded Gu Xiaoyin's spirit. As he clenched his fist, Gu Xiaoyin's spirit was smashed with a bang. Fu Chaosheng, who was the last one left, showed signs of collapse. Even though he was already an immortal, he still couldn't help but feel regretful at this time. If he had known this, how could he have agreed to Lin Sun's challenge last night? The battle broke out again, but there was no suspense this time. Fu Chaosheng was killed in one strike. Before he died, his face was full of bitterness. He sighed, "Yuan sect is not my pure land. Death is the end of all troubles." Outside the arena, there was dead silence. Everyone was speechless, and their minds were in turmoil. In less than a quarter of an hour, Qi Lingzhen, Zhong Liran, Gu Xiaoyin, and Fu Chaosheng, the four immortal disciples of Yuan Kong Pavilion, died in the arena of heaven's judgment. And the one who killed them was Lin Sun, who had just passed the tribulation today and proved immortal. Everything was as unreal as a nightmare. Fu Wenli, Qi Xiaoyun, Qi Wen, Yun Tianming, and the rest of the authorities remained silent. However, their faces were darker and uglier than the last. In order to prevent Lin Sun from passing the tribulation, they spent a lot of effort and used a lot of power, but they failed. No one could have imagined that Lin Sun's state of mind was so strong and tenacious. They thought that they could definitely kill Lin Sun in this life and death battle with the help of Qi Lingzhen and the other three. But in the end, they killed Qi Lingzhen and the other three. And Lin Sun became the final winner. This made Fu Wenli and the others feel frustrated, sullen, and depressed. Immortal figures like Qi Lingzhen were far superior to those of the same realm in the outside world, and sooner or later they would become the pillars of their respective clans. But now all of them were destroyed, and Lin Sun's survival meant that no one could stop him from stepping on the path of immortality in a short period of time. Xian Feiling, Duguyong, Fang Daoping, and other big shots felt relieved and relaxed. When they saw the expressions of Fu Wenli and the others, they couldn't help but laugh. All their efforts were in vain. For Xian Feiling and the others, it was enough as long as Lin Sun was alive. He won just like that? Xian Juyin was stunned, and he still couldn't recover from the shock. He won. Beside him, Jintian Xuanyue's eyes were shining. She had expected this and firmly believed it. Because in her heart, as long as Lin Sun wanted to do something, there might be twists and turns, and there might be accidents, but he would never fail in the end. He won. Qin Ruoling and the other heirs of the Ninth Peak were extremely excited, and their hearts were in turmoil. These days, the Ninth Peak had suffered a lot of suppression. Yi Chunjun was punished, and Peak Master Qin Wuyu was being impeached. Even the disciples were in a bad situation. But at this moment, when they saw Lin Sun kill all his opponents without hesitation, the accumulated anger in their hearts was vented, and they were extremely happy. From today onwards, he will no longer be a chess piece that can be manipulated by others. Qin Wuyu sighed in his heart, and he was extremely gratified. Stepping on the path of immortality, one would have the foundation to fight against those big shots, and one would become a player from a chess piece. Without a doubt, Lin Sun had achieved this. Junior brother Lin is so strong. Someone couldn't help but shout, and the dead silence in the field was broken. Then, all sorts of voices resounded. At this moment, in the heaven's judgment field, a tall figure stood alone with his hands behind his back, and he instantly became the most dazzling focus. Like the sun in the sky. P.S. I'm sending more updates,